And it's true. We are live. We are doing it. That looks pretty good. Hi, everybody. It's the pre-show for today's 221,001 Core 1 A+ study group. Haven't had a live stream in a few weeks. Just a scheduling thing. No particular reason other than that's the way it worked out. So I have to now remember how this works. I'm working on it. Hello, chat room. Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for everything you do. We are going to do all Core 1 Q&A today in this first hour. I'm going to ask you questions. In the second hour, I will open up the phone lines. I should probably get that ready to go on my side. Get the Skype loaded. We'll get those things started. There we go. That's looking good. Labor Day. I don't really have holidays these days. Labor Day was spent creating content. So yesterday here in the U.S. we had Labor Day. I guess in Canada as well. It's spelled differently though. But it's the same idea. I need to check cameras. Those are good. Recordings are good. Video is good. I think we're okay on that. You know what it is? It's hot in here. It's warm. We need air conditioning. You turn the lights on and everything starts getting warm. Even though they are LED lights, there's a lot of LED lights. So they count up. These lights I have are probably overkill. I wish I had a little bit different lighting in here. I got to work on that. There's a whole bunch of things I need to work on. We need to make it cooler. Let's bring it down. What's the temperature now? It's high. Let's bring it down to right there. That's best for everybody. I think we're in pretty good shape then. Hey, chat room. Hi, Canada and India and San Antonio twice. And the UK is here. Thanks for being here. Thanks for checking in. Namibia is here. Thailand, welcome. South Africa. Upstate New York. It is afternoon in the UK. Ireland is there. Thanks for being here. Hello, New York. Everything live is posted later. Everything live is available immediately afterwards. So immediately after that. There's Puerto Rico. Twice in Puerto Rico. Where are you in Puerto Rico? There's California, Somalia, New York City, Detroit, more Canada. Good our family in Canada. Welcome. Georgia. Which Georgia? That's the real question. There's Jackson, Mississippi. Hadn't been there in a while. Need to get back there. San Antonio, thanks for being here. St. Kitts, checking in. Baltimore, Afghanistan, Texas, Cali, North Carolina, Miami. Where do you go to answer live questions? Well, you'll see all of this here. If you want to find all the little places to go, it's professormesser.com/live, and you'll see all the links on the page there. But I'll give you all of that as we go through this. Do not worry. You will know exactly where and when. There's Miami. China, Sri Lanka, Savannah. I think people are just finding the most out-of-the-way places. They're Madagascar, and we're in Walla Walla, Washington. There's Savannah in Chicago. South Africa, welcome. Memphis, Texas. There's some Floridians, welcome. South Carolina. Charleston. I need to get down to Charleston. Haven't been there in a while. That's a great city. Louisiana. Hello, California, welcome. Virginia. Florida is here. Oh, no, it's Florida. More Savannah. Groveland. Groveland in Florida. Down in Groveland. Hello, Caymans. There's another place I need to get back to is the Cayman Islands. Really enjoyed my trip to the Caymans. Who would not? Who could not do that? That's a fantastic place to be. More Savannah. More Austin. Yeah, where is the North Korea guy? I haven't heard from North Korea lately. We're always finding he's calling from the North Korean coast. Oh, all right. There's our 5-minute warning. There's Pennsylvania. Welcome. Port St. Lucie. See, more Floridians are checking in. It's good to have you here. Hello, Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. Welcome. Mesquite, Texas, Alabama. We got a nice gathering here. I haven't looked at the analytics. I don't know how many people are on at the moment. I guess I could slide it over. How many are we doing? We're doing pretty good on analytics. People are definitely getting the feed. So we're in pretty good shape. See, we have North Korea's checked, not quite checked in yet, but Wakanda has checked in. So we have those two things. At least there. We're 4 minutes away from that. I think we're in good shape. Hello, Kentucky. Kuala Lumpur, of course. Barcelona, welcome. Hanscom Air Force Base, Massachusetts. Yeah, there's a few Puerto Ricans who've checked in. I haven't been to Puerto Rico in a while. Been there quite a number of times on business and quite a number of times on pleasure. So it's a little both of those for Puerto Rico. Been having to drive around and find my way around Caguas. That was a real problem for me because I just did not know the area. This was before there were like Google Maps. So that was the problem, the big issue. But we figured it out because everybody there is awesome. And you just say, hey, I need to get here. And they will draw you a detailed map if you have to. The nicest people in the world. It's a great place to go. Fijian Islands, welcome. Well, the Arkansas is there. Welcome. Thanks for being here. You purchased my practice exams today. Thank you so much. Hopefully you will find them useful. We spent a lot of time putting those together. And by we, it's really the royal we. I wrote the entire thing, so I spent a lot of time writing those questions. Columbia Central University in Caguas, Puerto Rico. Welcome. Glad you're there. I know the area. I almost want to say I know where Columbia Central University is, but I don't know that I recall back in the day. We've got about 2.5 minutes to go. The study session, the first hour, is me giving you questions from the Core 1 exam and you answering them live and online at professormesser.com/QA. And then the second hour is what we call the after show. It's really a show unto itself where I open up the phone lines and take questions from the chat room. So the first part is me asking you questions. The second part is the reverse. Is you asking me questions. Did I say that twice? Or did I reverse it properly? I never know. I sometimes forget. I've got other things going on here. I'm looking at times. We got our live updates to our Q&A working. It was not working last month, but they fixed it. So everything is good. Taking Core 1 on Monday. So this will be a good review. We'll see how you do with this. We've got a minute and a half. Get things going. I think I can remember how all of this works now. Let's see if I can get my headphones. Need a little bit more of me in the headphones. There we go. In the monitors. That looks good. That looks good up here. Recording down here. Yeah, you can see my silence down here. They're recording. Hey, passed Security Plus last week. Congratulations. That is a tough one. And that's a good one to pass too. That's a good jumping off point for the whole cybersecurity side. Speaking as someone who was in the cybersecurity market, in the cybersecurity field for so long, got to tell you, that's a good place to be. Can't beat that. There's so much happening in IT right now that in the security side, in the cloud side, operating systems, it's just remarkable. Databases, there's just so much happening right now. Really not databases as much as data. Just big data, cloud computing, cybersecurity. What's not to like? Just so much going on. So that's, I have good things. I'm in the process of doing the next Security Plus course. So that's why I bring that up. Let's get this started here. That looks good. That looks good here. I think we're just about ready, everybody. I think it's top of the hour, and it's about time. I was going to say earlier, the replay of this is available immediately afterwards. So you're always good there. You're not going to have a problem figuring out those pieces. Let's see if we can get a couple of extra things done in here. We're going to do that. And let's get this going. We need a presentation on the screen. I didn't test that earlier. We're going to get a big play button. We are. Let's do a study group, everybody. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the September 2020 Professor Messer A+ study group. This is our 220-1001, or what CompTIA calls the Core 1 A+ study group. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being here live. For everybody in the chat room, we've been talking. Thanks for watching this on the replay if you're doing that as well. In this first hour, I will be asking you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. So absolutely be ready for that when we go through that first hour. In the second hour, I will open up the phone lines. We'll take questions from the chat room. We'll talk to you about whatever you'd like to talk about. It can be about A+, it can be about anything, but in the second hour, you get to ask me questions. So we mix it up a little bit. If you are here live, you can participate live and online right here by going to professormesser.com/QA. There will be a question waiting for you right there. You just stay on that page. Just pop open a new browser window. You can stay on that page and answer questions as they come up. The questions will automatically refresh those on the page as we go. If you would like to use an app on your mobile device, go to your favorite app store and you want to download the Socrative Student app. That is the name of the app you would want, the Socrative Student app. It will ask you for a room name. The room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER, just like it's spelled right there. So you can't go wrong. You go to one of those, you'll be absolutely fine. If you do all of that, there will be a question waiting for you. That question that's waiting for you, we call our rewind question because it's a question that I asked last month. So we're going to see first if you remember what we did last month, and secondly, that you could go to professormesser.com/QA and get into the question and answer the question that is there. And a question that is waiting for you asks, which of the following would be associated with 802.11 AC? And if you go to professormesser.com/QA, you will see some possible answers for you. Which of the following would be associated with 802.11 AC? Would it be 2.4 gigahertz communication, 150 megabit per second throughput per stream, identifies users via RFID, has 8 MU-MIMO streams, or 40 megahertz channel bandwidth? Those are the 5 different options there. Take your pick of what you think they are. We will come back to those in just a moment with the answer. So stand by for that. Thanks for being here. We like to do one of these study groups at least once a month, at least the one for the Core 1. I do Core 1, I do Core 2, I do Network Plus, I do Security Plus. So there's always something that we can talk about when we get to that point. We can always find a topic somewhere in the month. So really, we're doing at least 4 live streams a month. This is our first one of the month. If you ever want to find out when the next live streams are and what we're doing, go to professormesser.com/YouTube/Twitter. We have our daily pop quiz question on both Instagram and on Twitter. So pick the social media thing you like the most, and you can absolutely go there to all of those. A great thing to do is to also subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's something you would like to see all of the latest videos. We're working on new videos all the time. There's some new things coming out very shortly. We'll show you when all those happen to be. Don't forget to support us on Amazon. If you buy things on Amazon, one of the things you should do is first go to our website at professormesser.com/Amazon. We will send you over to Amazon where you pay the same low price, but Amazon gives us a slight finder's fee, a little bit of a commission, and every little bit helps. So go to professormesser.com/Amazon. Also, if you're watching this, you can earn continuing education unit credit, CEUs, as they're called in the CompTIA world. I will, sometime in this first hour, give you instructions on how to do that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you don't know what a CEU is, then it doesn't matter to you. You're fine. But if you are someone who knows what that is, just listen in the first hour. I will give you all the details on that. Today, we're talking about questions that come from the Core 1 exam, the 220-1001. It was released on January 15th of 2019, so relatively new, a year and a half old or so. The exam itself is a 90-minute exam. You have to get a 675 score on a scale of 100 to 900. I know it's kind of weird the way they score these things. I think that's intentional. If you're somebody who was studying from the previous version, the 900 series, quite a bit has changed. 21% on the 1001 exam are new topics, completely brand new. They're not going to be in your 900 series book. Do not use 900 series materials if you are studying for the 1000 series exam. Make sure that all of your study materials match the version of the exam that you're going to take. That is that's your first tip of the day, to make sure that that's the case. It's going to be very important. If you need a copy of the objectives, they are incredibly valuable. You will find them, a link to them, at professormesser.com/objectives. The Core 1 exam covers a number of different topics, including mobile devices, networking, hardware, virtualization and cloud computing, and hardware and network troubleshooting, and potpourri. Other things might be in there as well, but those are the main sections of the exam. You will see everything you need to know in the exam objectives. That's where you should get all of the details for what you're doing. Now, of course, I have training videos for the Core 1 exam. There are also other materials that you can get as well. Course notes, practice exams. I have an exam hacks ebook that I wrote, which is about taking the exam. There's a number of tips for just the exam taking. And not dealing with A+ or Network Plus or Security Plus, but how do you make the most of taking an exam at one of the Pearson VUE exam centers or taking these exams online? It's both practically the same experience. So I wrote an entire ebook on about 14 or 15 different things, different tips that can really help you during the exam. There's also replays, audio replays that you can download. All the video I have can be downloaded. Audio versions of the course can be downloaded with my Success Bundle. If you want to get your hands on the Success Bundle, you can find out about it at professormesser.com/1001success. Be able to do that. There's also free questions on my site. There's another free thing that's available. I call these my Take 10 Challenge questions. They are archives of previous study groups, but they are online, something you can do. It scrambles up the questions every time you go through. Might help you a little bit. It scrambles up the answers anyway. And you can find those at professormesser.com/take10 to be able to do that. These podcasts are available for replay immediately afterwards. There's an audio version available on my site. You can find the links to that and how you can subscribe with your podcast listening program at professormesser.com/podcast. Also, if you're watching this on the replay and it's more than a day after the study group, we will have, I should say, Lori, my marketing manager, puts in all of the timestamps, which is incredibly useful. You can find exactly what you're looking for. Click on the time. It goes directly to that time in the video. For all of our study groups, going back now years, you can get these timestamps. Lori is watching this replay right now, watching us go through this. She's watching the chat go by because the chat also replays. So if you like to give Lori a hello, she really appreciates that. And of course, I appreciate it. Thanks, Lori. Thanks for doing this. For those of you that are interested in the content that we have, I'll point you over to the course notes. We'll talk about this in a moment. But the course notes are also available on my website at professormesser.com/1000notes, where I've consolidated everything into one place because there's 137 videos for the A+ certification. Instead of watching all 18 and a half hours and taking your own notes, you can watch the 18 and a half hours and look at my notes. So everything is in there, just something you can look at professormesser.com/1001notes. So let's talk about that question that we spoke of before. You go to professormesser.com/QA to answer the question that asks, which of the following would be associated with 802.11 AC? And of course, our standing rule in the study group is not to answer in the chat room. Please, no hints in the chat room. We're going to see how well we do. The possible answers for what might be associated with 802.11 AC is a 2.4 gigahertz communication. Is it a 150 megabit per second throughput per stream? Does it identify users via RFID? Does it allow for 8 multi-user MIMO streams, or does it have a 40 megahertz channel bandwidth? And if we look to see how we did, 57% of you say it's the 8 multi-user MIMO streams. That's what that MU MIMO is. The multiple input, multiple output for multiple users. There's a lot of multiples in there. An incredibly valuable piece if you have multiple users in your home and they're all doing different things, they're all streaming a different video. It's nice to have that capability to be able to effectively increase the bandwidth on your wireless network without anybody else being affected or slowed down at all. Quite a remarkable thing. That is the right answer, by the way, the multi-user MIMO streams. 802.11ac is a 5 gigahertz technology only. It does not operate over 2.4 gigahertz. It has much higher than 150 megabit per second throughput per stream. It does not do anything with identifying users via RFID, and it has a larger channel bandwidth than 40 megahertz. So quite a number of differences. 802.11ac, it's really what the latest is. There are newer versions of wireless that will be out shortly that we'll may be able to take advantage of. But if you have all of the configurations, the radios, the antennas, the users, and everything is perfect, you can get nearly 7 gig per second throughput total for a single access point with 802.11ac. Most of us have a fraction of that, but even half of that is pretty good. So it depends on the access points you have. I talk a little bit about that in my video. This comes from my video 220.1001 section 2.4 called Wireless Standards. That's where that came from. So that is the right answer. If you answered D, 8 multi-user MIMO streams, that is the correct answer. That's the only one of these things that is associated or can be describing 802.11ac as a standard. So the others, of course, there are other standards that have those particular characteristics, but none of these are 802.11ac except the 8 multi-user MIMO streams. A great thing to have there. So hopefully you've now gotten into the Q&A. You've been able to answer these questions. You see how all of this works. So let's do some new questions for the month. As many of you who have watched this or listened to this study group before, the first new question of the month is a performance-based question. Now, for most of us, we're used to multiple choice-based questions, like the one we just had, where I ask you a question and then you choose A, B, C, or D, or E in my particular case. So you choose from a multiple set of choices. You have at least a 20% chance of getting this one right because there are 5 choices available. But there are a number of questions you will get on your A+ exam at the very beginning, a handful of questions or so. It's random, so we don't know exactly how many, but you'll get a few questions that are not multiple choice. They are anything but multiple choice. They could be fill in the blank. They could be drag and drop. They could be putting things in a particular order. They could be a matching question. They could be putting you at a command prompt and asking you to perform a function. It's anything but multiple choice. That's what performance-based questions mean. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get one of those. It could be a combination of all of them. We just never know exactly what you're going to get. But I like to give you a performance-based question as your first question of the month. So here is this month's performance-based question. It asks, list the protocol, which would be TCP or UDP, and then I have 5 separate descriptions of these to determine what the protocol and port number should be for all 5 of these. So the first is copy a file between macOS computers. What protocol, TCP or UDP, and what port number would be used to do that? B is securely configure a router at the command line. What port number, what port protocol, TCP or UDP, and then what port number? C is view the screen of a remote Windows computer. D is configure a firewall from a web browser. And E is print to a shared Windows printer. Now, I'm only asking you for the protocol and the port number, the TCP or UDP, and the port number. If you know the application level protocol, you could add that into this as well because it's a fill-in-the-blank question. So you have A, B, C, D, and E. And although if this were a real test, you could flag this question and come back to it later, which is, to be fair, one of my favorite strategies for the exam is to flag all of the performance-based questions and jump right in to be able to go to the multiple choice questions and then come back to this later. But this is one where you cannot flag it. You have to answer now. And remember, do not answer in the chat room and no hints in the chat room. We're going to figure out what all these port numbers happen to be. As you're probably aware, on the A+ exam and the Network Plus exam, you have to know your ports and protocols. It's one of those, I don't want to call it rote memorization, because for the exam, it's a lot like this, where you have to not just know the ports and protocols and what they are, you have to know how they are used. And how they're used is a big part of the exam, not just in the performance-based questions, but also in the multiple choice based questions. You don't get a lot of trivia on the exam. They're not going to ask you, what does MIMO stand for? And then you have to choose which one says multiple input, multiple output. They're not going to ask you that. They will instead give you a question like the one I gave, which is, tell me which one of these things is most associated with 802.11ac. And you have to know what multi-user MIMO is. You have to know what MU MIMO is. And if you don't know that, then you can't put it in context for the question. So there's multiple steps to be able to do that. Different things you can work through all of those. This is a question that normally you don't get a fill in the blank on the exam. So I did make this one a touch harder than what you would get on the actual exam. Very commonly, they would probably give you, if there's 5 of these, they might give you 8 different options. Might give you 8 different port numbers, and you have to match them, and there'll be some left over at the end. But in this case, I wanted to make it a little bit harder. I turned it up just a little bit. We went up to about 11 on this one. So now you have to figure out, plug it in from what you know, not what you're given. So it's got to be in your brain to have those things there. Now, if you're wondering, where is this list of port numbers and protocols? It's in the exam objectives. You have to look through that exam objectives, and it's a pretty big number in the exam objectives. What's interesting about this is that you really do get quite a bit of practice with this in the practical use. Because if you're configuring a firewall, you're setting up a personal firewall on an operating system, or you're doing some type of work with networking, these just turn out to be something you just remember normally. So that's one of those that is an important thing. Let's step through each one of these and see if we can figure out what they are. Let's start with the first one, which is copy a file between Mac OS computers. This would be the Apple Filing Protocol, or AFP, and that operates with the TCP protocol over port 548 for all of those. So that is one of those important things to be able to work through. Now, if you ever work with all of these port numbers and try to figure out what all of these things might be, this does become a little bit challenging to remember them, but Apple Filing Protocol is definitely in your list from the exam objectives. Let's do another one. Securely configure a router at the command line. You'll be doing a lot of this if you do anything, because the command line doing anything over a terminal connection that is secure is going to be SSH, and that will be TCP port 22, another important protocol to know. Third on our list was view the screen of a remote Windows computer. Well, if you've done anything with Remote Desktop Protocol, or RDP, then you've communicated using TCP over port 3389. Fourth on our list was configure a firewall from a web browser. This should have been a gimme. If we're configuring a firewall or purchasing something online, then it's the secure version of browsing. So it's going to be HTTPS. And of course, that operates over TCP port 443. And last on our list, print to a shared Windows printer. I got Mac OS at the top. We put Windows down here at the bottom, so we covered our bases. So printing to a shared Windows printer, probably the most common answer these days are going to be things like SMB, server message block, and that uses TCP port 445 on all modern implementations of server message block. We don't do a lot of NetBIOS these days. It's more directed point-to-point, IP address to IP address, and that is TCP 445 to be able to do that. Those are your 5 answers. Copying a file between Mac OS is TCP 548 for Apple Filing Protocol. Securely configuring a router at the command line is SSH over TCP 22. View the screen of a remote Windows computer is Remote Desktop Protocol, or 3389. We have configuring a firewall from a web browser, which is HTTPS at TCP port 443, and printing to a shared Windows printer is server message block, TCP 445. So if you got all of those, you're in pretty good shape to be able to work through those pieces. You know your port numbers pretty well at this point. Now, one of the questions people asked earlier in the chat room is, do you get partial credit? Maybe you got one of these right, or 2 or 4. Do you get partial credit? Well, CompTIA has said on their frequently asked questions on their website, maybe. They've given us a definitive maybe as to whether they would ever give partial credit. They say there may be times when they get partial credit, They say there may be times when they don't, and they will not tell you when those times will be. I'm not even sure why they answered the question, but they did, and it was online. Although I will tell you, when they initially answered the question online, they said that it was rare for them to give partial credit. And then they went back later and they changed the wording to say they could. I don't want to say if they said occasionally, or they took out the word rare anyway. They say there are times when they do give partial credit. A question like this tends to lend itself, I would think, to partial credit. So maybe this is one of those where they would. We don't know. My best recommendation to you is just do the best you can on the exam. Don't worry about the grading. If you know your content, then you will get as many questions right as you possibly can, and it will be graded however they grade it. That's all you can really do, because you don't have any control over that. Just send that one off to the universe. Let it free. Don't have to worry about that, and you can concentrate on the exam. Let's do a multiple choice question. That was our performance-based question of the month. Hopefully you were able to get something out of that. Let's go through now to our multiple choice questions and see how we do with those. Our multiple choice question asks, as I bring it up on my screen, a network administrator would like to configure a Soho firewall to allow external access to a server on the internal network. Which of the following would provide this configuration? Would it be port forwarding, SSID broadcasts, WPA2 encryption, QoS, or MAC filtering? Now remember, no answers in the chat room. Please put your answers at professormesser.com/QA. A network administrator would like to configure a Soho firewall to allow external access to a server on the internal network. Which of the following would provide this configuration? Is it port forwarding, SSID broadcasts, WPA2 encryption, QoS, or MAC filtering? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA, lock in your answer. See if you happen to know what it is. This is one that, as a firewall engineer, I did all the time. This is one that you have to do all the time, because there constantly will be times when you have a server that is protected on the inside of the network, but there are people on the outside that need access to that server. How do you give them access? Is it port forwarding, SSID broadcast, WPA2 encryption, QoS, or MAC filtering? One of those. Figuring out those details will be useful to be able to know this. So if you're ever going through this and figuring out how to configure this on your firewall, you will need to do one of these things. We will figure out what that happens to be. Maybe you do. Maybe you've done this before. If you've ever set up a service on the inside of your network so that people on the outside of your network could access it, I don't want to give too much away. I'm trying not to give too many hints. But if you have done that, then you had to perform this particular function. So there you go. That's my hint, non-hint there for you to work through as we figure out those details. So we'll have to see how we do with this one. In fact, we've had a number of people answer, so let's flip over and see how you answered. A network administrator would like to configure a Soho firewall to allow external access to a server on the internal network. Which of the following would provide this configuration? Port forwarding, SSID broadcast, WPA2 encryption, QoS, or MAC filtering? 71% of you say it's port forwarding. That may be a good guess. We're going to find out in a moment. 15% of you say it's MAC filtering. That would be the right answer for that. We also have 6%, 5%, and 3% for SSID broadcast, WPA2 encryption, and QoS. So not many people think that it happens to be that either. So that would not be the case. Most of you said port forwarding is what you would use for that. And if you've ever had to set up some type of server on this inside of your network, a web server, a gaming server, a Xbox, then you've probably had to configure up port forwarding. That is exactly what you use. This is effectively a network address translation is what you are doing here. But because it's a Soho firewall, it's something you have at home, we don't call it a NAT. We don't call it network address translation. That's way too complicated. We call it forwarding a port. You're simply taking a port and forwarding it. But you're really performing a network address translation behind the scenes, where you are mapping an external IP address and port number to an internal IP address and port number. In fact, they can be very different in what people are accessing from the outside. Sometimes if you're using more of an enterprise type of firewall, this is called a destination NAT, occasionally called a static NAT. Not all firewalls have different names for different things, depending on what firewall you're using. But this is exactly what you would use for that, where you are taking a network address on the outside and translating it to a network address on the inside, thus the name network address translation. That is exactly what that is. So if you answered port forwarding, part of the 71% that chose A, you are absolutely correct on that. Now, 15% of you said MAC filtering is what would be used. You could configure a Soho firewall for MAC filtering, but that is only to allow or disallow a particular MAC address from communicating on the network. MAC addresses are all local addresses. You don't ever manage a MAC address that's somewhere out over the internet. So MAC filtering would not be used to be able to allow external access to an internal network. The internal IP addresses would not allow that anyway, because internal IP addresses cannot be routed. So it would not be MAC filtering for that. 6% of you said SSID broadcasts. SSID, the service set identifier, is the name of the wireless network that pops up whenever you pull down a list of available networks. Shows you all the available networks in your area. That was populated because your system listened for these SSID broadcasts. It heard one and it put the name in the list. You'll notice when you're watching those lists, sometimes they will populate themselves. That's because as it hears the names, it puts those into the list. If you disable the SSID broadcast, the wireless network won't appear in a list, but that has nothing to do with being able to provide external access to an internal server, unfortunately. We have WPA2 encryption. That is a wireless encryption method. That's also not something that's used to allow external access to a server on the internal network, but it's very useful if you want to encrypt all of your wireless network, which of course you probably do. And lastly, QoS is quality of service. That is a technology built into your router or your access point or your firewall or your whatever you have that is allowing you to put different applications at different priorities. That way, if somebody is talking on a voice over IP phone, they have priority over you transferring a large file across the network. So in this particular case, allowing external access to a server on the internal network, the only possible answer is A, port forwarding. That is exactly what we're trying to do, and 72% of you got that absolutely right. Question in the chat room. We had someone say, does MAC filtering, is that used for both wired Ethernet and wireless connections? It absolutely could be. So on my access point that I use or my router that I use, I can configure MAC filtering on both the wired and the wireless side. Many people think the MAC filtering is only a wireless thing, but is also available very often on the wired side as well. So that might help with you trying to allow or disallow access to your network by using the MAC filtering, at least from an administrative standpoint. That was great. 72% of you did very well on that one. So let's do another question and see how well you do on this one. The next question asks, which RAID type maintains duplicate copies of striped data? Which RAID type maintains duplicate copies of striped data? And our choices here are all of the RAID types that are on the Core 1, which is RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, and RAID 1 plus 0, which some people call RAID 10. So we got a lot of choices there, but they're always the choices that you already know about. RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, or RAID 1 plus 0. Which RAID type maintains duplicate copies of striped data? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please do not answer in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. You want to go to professormesser.com/QA. Do I have a Discord or am I on Discord? I am on Discord, but I do not have a Discord server. I tried to do a Discord server and just was not, it was just not my thing. Just not what we wanted to do. I already have a 24/7 chat on the Professor Messer website. That's a great way to chat with others and with me most of the time. So that's a great way to do it. Discord probably, if they get better with some of their administrative features on the back end, things you can do to help manage the chats that are going on, we may revisit that. But right now, it's not quite ready to go for the things that we need to do. So not currently. Don't currently have that. So answer at professormesser.com/QA. Lock in the type of RAID type that you would like to answer on this one. Number of you are trying to Google this. Stop Googling it. I can always see when the numbers slow down that the people are trying to figure out the answer somewhere. These are all new questions every time. Nobody's ever seen these questions before. So this is not something that can easily be Googleable. Googleable for that? Anyway, we'll be able to figure out the details of that as we go through it. Let's see how you did with this particular one. Which RAID type maintains duplicate copies of striped data? Is it RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 1 plus 0? Let's see how you did with this one. A little bit smaller number, but still a majority. 59% of you say it's RAID 1 plus 0, which we also know is RAID 10. Sometimes we don't put the plus in there. It's simply RAID 10 or RAID 1.0. Only 7% said RAID 0, 15% said RAID 1, 20% said RAID 5 for these. So the answer in this case, although 59% of you said RAID 1 plus 0, well, that's the right answer, RAID 1 plus 0. RAID 1 plus 0 is a combination of RAID 1 and RAID 0. We took those two technologies and we pushed them down into a single technology. So you can think of it as a stripe of mirrors is a good way to put this, where you've got the speed or the technology of speed available in striping, and you have mirrored striping. So you've got, for instance, 3 drives here that are striped. So block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're separating the data between all 3 of these physical drives, which in some ways should provide us with an improvement over the writing speed. That's the idea. But then we've also got some additional drives in the middle where we mirror each one of those. Why did I say it like that? So you've got a striped drive and then a duplicate of a striped drive. You got a separate striped drive and a duplicate of that striped drive. And then we've got another striped drive and a duplicate of that one. This way, you've got the speed of striping, but if you lose a striped drive, like with RAID 0, we always say RAID 0, which is striping, RAID 0 has no redundancy. Well, now you've got striping, but you've got a redundant stripe. Kind of nice to have the separate mirror there of the stripe. So pretty useful to have those capabilities. If you're trying to figure this out now, you could technically, in this particular configuration, you could lose 3 drives here and you would still be up and running, because you could lose this mirror, and this mirror, and then you would still be running. You'd still be operational even after losing 3 drives. That's kind of nice to have. Now, of course, if you lost the 4th drive, you'd be out of business. And of course, if you lost 2 of the same kind, you would, of course, have no data either. But of course, RAID is not backup. So this is not about being able to recover data. This is about uptime and availability, being able to have this here. So for those 6 individual physical drives, you could technically lose 3 of them and still be up and running with the striping piece of that. RAID 10 or RAID 1 plus 0 is the right answer. If you answered that, the 58% of you got that one absolutely right. RAID 0 is striping. There is no duplicate copy of data. There is no parity. There is no duplicate at all. RAID 0 is no redundancy. RAID 0, 0 redundancy, and 7% of you thought it might be that, but nope, not quite. Not quite the answer on that one. RAID 1 does provide redundancy through mirroring. So you have a duplicate copy with RAID 1. We call it mirroring. So you have a duplication of information, but you don't duplicate striped data. You're actually duplicating actual data across 2 separate drives. So that is 16% of you answered RAID 1. RAID 1 simple mirroring would not be duplicate copies of striped data. It's duplicate copies of the actual data. RAID 5 we call striping, where we're taking a little bit of every file and we're separating it out across multiple drives with some parity on it. Striping with parity, and it's the parity that gives you the additional redundancy capability. In my videos, we even go through a parity section and I show you how to calculate parity and I explain to you how this parity actually gives you some type of redundancy. But it is a single copy of the parity, so that striped data is also not duplicated at all. So it would not be duplicate copies of striped data. There's only one copy of the striped data and then a parity part on RAID 5. 20% of you chose that one, but not quite the right answer. The right answer was indeed RAID 1 plus 0. 58% of you got that one right. Which RAID configuration, from the chat room, which RAID configuration is most commonly used in real-world scenarios? Well, I would say the most common use of RAID is probably not a standard RAID type at all. But if you had to choose a standard RAID type that is probably the most common, it's probably 5. It's probably RAID 5 because you have the flexibility of having the redundancy in this mix. So you have the parity drive, and if you lose a drive, you're still up and running, but you're also conserving drive space. You have the largest possible drive space as well with RAID 5. So if you were choosing a RAID type, RAID 5 is probably the one that is used the most. What usually happens, though, is the manufacturers of these RAID arrays will create their own flavor of RAID. They'll take RAID 5, but then they'll modify it to add additional functionality. For example, I have a Synology RAID, and Synology is using the Synology RAID type. And they gave me a choice. They say you can run RAID 5 or you can run the Synology RAID type. What would you like? I chose the Synology RAID type because it allows you to have different sizes of drives in your array, and you're not losing any data. Whereas RAID 5 is expecting a very specific sized drive throughout the entire array. And if it's a bigger drive, you have wasted space. You're not using it. So most manufacturers have their own flavor of RAID. But if you had to pick one, probably RAID 5 is what most people are doing. And that is the right answer here. RAID 1 plus 0 is the right answer here. 58% of you, not the RAID 5 on this one, because it is duplicate copies of striped data for all of those. Hopefully you got that one right too. If you know your RAID, if you don't know your RAID, make sure you go back. The RAID came to us from section 3.4, and the name of the video aptly named RAID. That's the name of the video. Have that one on. So hopefully you know about that. Now, I always tell you that once you've gone through all of my videos, you've taken notes, or you use my course notes, and you've studied everything you could possibly study, you need to do a lot of Q&A. That's your final check to see, am I ready for the exam? And one of the things I found is that there's not a lot of great Q&A out there. There's not a lot of great ways to check yourself to see if you really know. And to me, I need to take a practice exam that is going to challenge me at what I think will be the same difficulty level as the exam. I also want to have the same type of style of questions. I want to have the same flavor of questions. There's a certain type of voice to the CompTIA exams, a certain way they ask their questions. So this is what I put together then was a set of practice exams that fits that criteria. I wanted to give you 3 complete practice exams. I wanted them to be 90 questions exams, just like the maximum 90 questions you could get on the exam. I wanted to give you multiple choice questions and a handful of performance-based questions at the beginning, just like the actual exam. I wanted to give them the same voice and the same style and the same flavor as the actual exam. So I did that as well. But then I added a few extra touches. Let me show you what I mean. Here is the first question from the first exam on the 221,001, which is a printer in the accounting department has stopped all printing processes. The print queue shows that there are 7 jobs in the queue that are waiting to be printed. Which of the following would be the best next troubleshooting step? Would it be A, send the test job to the printer and move it to the top of the queue? Would it be B, restart the printer spooler? Would it be C, install an updated version of the printer driver? Or would it be D, delete everything in the queue and resend the print jobs? Now, I have the answer to this question. You can get a quick answer to it on page 31. The details of the answer are on page 39. Instead of using your mouse wheel and scrolling down to page 39, I put a link right in the book so you can click on the details and it takes you to page 39. And then you have the question again, but then you can see that the answer is B, restart the printer spooler. And then I give you an explanation of why that is the right answer. Because the print spooler is the software responsible for storing print jobs and sending them to the printer. If the printer spooler is failed or stopped, none of the print jobs will be sent to the printer. Perhaps more importantly in my mind, I give you all of the incorrect answers and I explain to you why every incorrect answer was not the right answer. Because I think this is where you learn things. I get questions wrong all the time, and my question is, why was that wrong? I see why you chose the right answer, but why did I not get this one right? Why did I think this was the right answer? And so I explained to you why that's the case. Now, of course, I have all of these free videos online as well. So I create at the very bottom of the page a list of what video this came from. Came from 221001 Objective 5.6 troubleshooting printers. I give you a quick link to the video. So if you're doing this in a PDF, you can click it. If you have your phone available right now, you can pop open your camera. You don't have to take a picture of the screen. Just put your camera in front of the screen to this QR code, and your camera will recognize the QR code and will take you to the video so that you can watch the video afterwards as well. So this is kind of a soup to nuts scenario where I'm trying to give you as much information as possible. And even if I haven't given you enough, you can still go watch the video and go see more of this. Now I can use the back button in my browser, which is the command bracket, to go back and then just go to the next question. Let's go to question 7. And then I can go through 7 and click on the details, or I can just go through one at a time and go through all of this. Those are my practice exams. I have practice exams for Security Plus. I have practice exams for Core 1. I have practice exams for Core 2. And they are all available on my website. I think they are not only a valuable tool to use before you go in to take your exam, they're also something that you can use to help support what we're doing here. We give all of our videos for all of our training courses, we give away for free. That's something you can watch at any time on the internet with nothing at all. We don't ask for any money for you to be able to watch those. But of course, the lights still have to keep working. The internet connection still has to keep running. So this is another way to help support what we do. If you'd like to know more about these practice exams, they are at professormesser.com/core1PE, CORE1PE for Core 1 practice exams. You also find links to them on the website. That might be a good place to go if you're trying to find them on the website too. And there's a combo you can get between the practice exams and the course notes that might also save you a little money as well. Find that all at professormesser.com/core1PE. Well, by the way, for those of you that have purchased these practice exams, thank you so much. It really does help a lot with keeping these things going. I hope it helped you as well in working towards your A+ certification. Let's do another question. I've got a question available. This next multiple choice-based question asks, a development team is building an application based on pre-existing modules on a cloud-based service. Which of the following would best describe this platform? Would it be PAAS? Would it be hybrid? Would it be SAAS? Would it be internal? Or would it be IaaS? You've got 5 different things. A development team is building an application based on pre-existing modules on a cloud-based service. Which of the following would best describe this platform? Would it be PAAS? Would it be hybrid? Would it be SAAS? Would it be internal? Or would it be IaaS? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. From the chat room, any update on the Core 2 practice exams? When are the Core 2 practice exams coming? They're available. They're already out there, brother. You can go get them right now. Go get them. That's they're on the website. They've been there. So they were actually there last week. Finished them up last week, put them there available. The 1002 Core 2 practice exams book, all 3, same format, same number of questions, same explanations, same links to the videos, are all available for Core 2 as well on the website. So it doesn't matter which exam you're working, if you have Core 1 or Core 2, they are there and available. I know I've been saying for months, they're coming. I'm working on them anytime now. Hopefully they're coming. Hopefully they'll be available. Hopefully I finally finished them. Last week was a really good week when we finished all of those questions, got them online, tested. Of course, we have to write the book. Then I have to edit and make sure all the problems of me writing the questions was fixed. Then I have to make sure all the links work, have to make sure all of the video connections work, have to make sure that it's a good book. So yes, we go through all of that to figure out those pieces, having to figure out all of the different questions. So it was nice to have that done. Absolutely. And I love those books. I think they're really, really useful books. They are the question and answer books I wish I had when I was studying for my A+. So I think they're probably the best Q&A books on the market. I'm a bad person to ask and say that. I'll leave that up to you to figure out the details. When will CompTIA update the information again? Well, for A+, you've got about another couple of years. So you got plenty of time before you ever will see this exam retire. I'll have to put the retirement dates at the very beginning. Do I focus on material for CompTIA? Do I have also material non-CompTIA exams? Currently only CompTIA. In the past, I've done some Cisco. In the past, I've done some Microsoft. But I'm planning to do some other non-CompTIA stuff soon, I hope. If it all works out, we'll see. Let's see how you did with this question, which asked, a development team is building an application based on pre-existing modules on a cloud-based service. Which of the following would best describe this platform? Would it be PaaS, hybrid, SaaS, internal, or IaaS? How did we do? 63% of us think that it's platform as a service. 23% of us think it's software as a service. Those are the big two in this particular question, because only 8% said infrastructure as a service, only 5% said hybrid, and only 1% said internal. So a lot of you said platform as a service. The real important parts of this particular question really talked about, we know it's cloud-based service, but all the answers are referring to cloud-based services. So they're all cloud-based. So that didn't help us very much. But the other piece, pre-existing modules, and you're building an application from pre-existing modules, that should immediately jump out at you that this is platform as a service, where they give you a platform to work on. They effectively give you the building blocks. They give you the Legos that you need to use to be able to put this together so that you don't have to write your own login screen. You don't have to write your own add a user screen. You don't have to write your own inventory management screen. You don't have to write your own accounts payable screen. You simply say, put the login screen here. Then after that, put an add user screen. Then after that, put an inventory screen. And then after that, put a screen for our accounts payable. And then you can put the blocks together and say, go. And that's really it. That's how platform as a service works. That's a great way to do it. And because it's a cloud-based service, and usually in a third-party cloud-based service, you don't have any servers. You don't have any software. You're not managing a team to manage and keep this up and running. All you do is build the app. You put the blocks together. You're not even doing a ton of programming. You're just sort of building the app together, although often you do have programmers that put those things together. They know how to put all the blocks together in the right way. And they put those blocks together, and now you've got an application. Good example of this is what Salesforce.com does for their platform as a service offering, which is primarily their offering, is their platform as a service. Salesforce does a lot of money. A lot of people use platform as a service on that Salesforce platform. So that is what you are looking for this question, which was platform as a service, or PaaS. A lot of you, 22% of you, said software as a service. Why is it not software as a service? Well, software as a service would be an application that was already written. You wouldn't have to put it together. There wouldn't be building blocks. For example, when you use Google Mail, you simply log into Google Mail and everything is there. It's able to show you your emails. You can reply to emails. You can put emails in a folder. You can connect to third-party mail systems and transfer mail in. You can forward mail out to a different mail system. But you didn't have to put all that together yourself. You didn't have to say, give me a block to log in. Give me a block for my inbox. Give me a block for pulling mail from a third party. Give me a block for forwarding mail out. All you did was log into Google Mail, which is software as a service. It's already built, and that's it. You really don't have a lot of customization. Even if you wanted to change the way that Google Mail worked, and boy, I do, but I can't. I can't change the way Google Mail works. It's software as a service. The advantages and disadvantages of software as a service. We had 8% of you that said infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Infrastructure as a service means they just give you a computer. They give you memory, storage space, CPU, and a network, and they say that's what you got. It's up to you to do everything else. You have to load the operating system. You have to load the application. You have to manage the device. You have to do a lot with that. Infrastructure as a service. So definitely you don't have pre-existing modules. You have to start from scratch. You don't have building blocks. You have nothing. You have to build the building blocks. That's real key there. You have hybrid and internal, which are types of cloud systems. Hybrid being one that is sort of a combination of a public and private cloud, which is very common to see actually. And then an internal cloud is one where all of the cloud-based systems, the cloud hardware, is in your data center, but it's all internal. You can still use it as a cloud. You're still, of course, carving out pieces of it and bringing up systems and tearing them back down again and using all the advantages you have with the cloud-based system. It just happens to be on your hardware internal to your organization. That would be an internal cloud. So in this case, the best description of this particular pre-existing modules in a cloud-based service would indeed be platform as a service. 64% of you got that one absolutely right. Good job with that. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, follow these instructions, and you must follow these instructions to be able to earn a 1-hour webinar category CEU. I will send you a digitally signed email that says you must have watched this if you follow these instructions. You want to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. At the top or bottom is a Contact Us link. Click that Contact Us and put in there, it'll ask for your name. Put your name there. It'll ask for your email address. Make sure that's correct because I'm sending this back to you over email. See, it's important. It has a subject line. In that subject line, if you could put that this is the September Core 1 A+ study group or something like that. So at least I know where this came from. And then in the body of the message, on a line by itself with nothing else on it, a simple line by itself that says pre-existing modules. That is our super secret code words of the month. Pre-existing modules is our super secret code word of the month. Put that on a line all by itself. And then underneath that, if you want to put any other message to me, these are all coming to my inbox, so send them all to me. If you put any other messages in there, I will read through every single one of them. I can't necessarily reply back to all of them, but I do read every single one of these that you send me. So pre-existing modules is your super secret code word of the month. Go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us, fill in those details. And it takes me about a week to turn these around. So this is not an immediate thing. So I've had people send them in and then an hour later say, where is it? An hour later, send me another message. Hey, where is it? It's not an automated system. It's not getting lost. I promise you. It's up to me at that point to sit down and go through them. There's a little bit of a manual process there, but I will get to that. Don't worry. We'll get to all those pieces. Let's do another question. Got some time for another Q and the A. The question is, during the power on process, the screen remains blank and the computer beeps 3 times. Which of the following is the most likely reason? Would it be faulty RAM, operating system not found, monitor not powered on, keyboard disconnected, or network not found? During the power on process, the screen remains black and the computer beeps 3 times. Which of the following is the most likely reason? Is it faulty RAM, operating system not found, monitor not powered on, keyboard disconnected, or network not found? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room to have all of those there. I do not offer a lot of discounts. The only discount I ever offer is for military. So if you are in the military, send me a message from the Contact Us link on the website, and I'll get you the details. Do I have any plans on creating CISA Plus content? Probably not. It's technically on my list, which is a very long list, but because there's probably one person every month that asks me, it doesn't have a huge draw for me to have that there. So not exactly what we can do with those pieces. Yes, the military discounts for United States military, current and former. I guess you're never former, are you? You're active and not active. That's kind of how it works for those pieces. So yes. So all of those might help you when it gets to all of those. So hopefully you can break down all of this, figuring out the details and making sure you know all of these. Yeah, the objectives list is pretty important. And figuring out the Space Force, yes, that's military. Absolutely. All of those. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, Coast Guard. Absolutely. My grandfather was Air Force, United States Air Force. The discount I give is really, it's sort of his discount. He's not here to see it, but, well, he's here to see it, isn't he? So he gets to see the discount. So everybody who gets that discount, you're kind of getting Pop-Pop's discount. That's what that is for those pieces. Yeah, we'll do spouse military as well. Probably more so. Probably more so. You're working hard too. Get all those pieces for all of those. Figure out the details. During the power on process, the screen remains black. The computer beeps 3 times. Which of the following is the most likely reason? Let's see how we did with this. And is it faulty RAM, operating system not found, monitor not powered on, keyboard disconnected, or network not found? Which is it? It could have been 4 beeps. It could have been 8 beeps. It could have been 2 beeps. It was just a lot of beeps whenever you power this on. Why is it that way? It could have been 2 of these answers, by the way. And we'll break down why it was only one of these answers. 75% of you say it's faulty RAM is the reason for those pieces. 18% said operating system not found. 6% said monitor not powered on. Only 1% said keyboard disconnected. I thought that would have been the second most, or maybe even the most, depending. 0% said network not found, which is most of the time on my system. So I know that wasn't it. To figure out those details, what would the right answer be? Well, let's talk about the post-process, the power on self-test, and the booting that we do on our computer. If you get a black screen where there's just nothing on the screen, something horrible has happened. Because if the screen is not able to show you anything, there has to be some fundamental problem with the computer. Like the hardware of this system is broke. You'd have bad video card, no video card. That's happened. Bad memory. The CPU isn't even installed, or it's bad. CPUs don't tend to go bad. I guess they could if you were really pushing it, if you were overclocking it quite a bit. But it's just not there. Maybe it wasn't connected properly. Maybe there is a problem with the CPU. Very commonly, because the screen is black, there's nothing on the screen, that is telling us that something fundamental is not working properly to have that there. Bad video, bad RAM, and a bad CPU are very common issues associated with that. Now, that's why it's beeping. It can't show you anything. There's nothing, it can't show you information on the screen because the memory doesn't work or the CPU doesn't work, and you need CPU and memory to be able to show things on the screen. See how this works? Those are really important for your computer. Those are fundamental for the computer. So the basic input operating system during the power on self-test process is at least giving you some kind of feedback. And the number of beeps depends on the type of manufacturer that you're using. Bad RAM might be 3 beeps. Bad RAM might be 7 beeps. Bad RAM might be a long beep and 1 short beep. It's different. You have to look at your manual to see what those are. But in this particular case, that really describes our problem, is that we had a black screen and the computer beeped 3 times. The only thing on this list that could be the most likely reason is the faulty RAM. There's nothing else on here that it could qualify for. It's not, could have been bad CPU. Well, there wasn't an answer about bad CPU. Could have been a problem with the video adapter. Well, there wasn't a problem listed with the video adapter in the possible answers. So the only answer that made sense here was the faulty RAM. 75% of you got that one right. Now, 18% of you said operating system not found. Now, if you ever boot your computer and the storage system on your computer doesn't have an operating system on it, the computer starts up and puts a message on the screen that literally says operating system not found. It tells you on the screen, operating system not found. So in this particular question, we had a completely black screen and the computer beeping 3 times. On a normal computer, it just looks like it starts up normally. You see the BIOS splash screen come up, and then it says operating system not found. So it's a completely different scenario when the operating system isn't found on the storage drive. System boots properly. You got good memory, got good CPU. It passed the power on self-test. It looked at the storage device and said, oh, I can't find operating system, and it tells you. And that's why that would be the case. Monitor not powered on. Well, that would certainly be the screen remaining black. That would do it. In fact, that's the question. If you're on the help desk, is your monitor turned on? Is everything plugged in? Is the monitor plugged in? But what you wouldn't get is a computer beeping a lot of times because it's booting up normally. It's going through its normal boot process. Probably didn't beep much at all, for that matter, to have this. So monitor not powered on or monitor not powered up or no power at all to the monitor, it still would start normally. Once you finally powered on the monitor, you'd see everything on the screen. Everything would be fine with that. So it would not describe this particular set of circumstances. A keyboard disconnected would probably stop the process during the beginning because the power on self-test wants to see a keyboard on there. But what happens is that the screen comes up, it goes through its self-test, and a message on the screen says, keyboard not found. So we don't have the black screen issue. And it's not going to beep a bunch of times because the problem isn't with your screen. It tells you what the problem is. It says the keyboard's not connected. So that would not be a black screen. It would not be 3 beeps. And lastly, a network not found. You're probably not going to know that until the operating system is finally started up and it tries to go out to the network to be able to access different resources. You're not going to get a black screen and you're not going to get 3 beeps with that one. The only one of these that gives you a black screen and 3 beeps is your faulty RAM. Answer A, 75% of you got that one absolutely right. That is the right answer. Now, I know we're at the top of the hour, but let's squeeze in one more question, shall we? I think we have time for another one. We're going to go overtime here with our questions, but I want to give you one more multiple choice question today. Let's get through it to be able to get through all of these. I think that might help as well. You ever start working through all of these pieces. The next question on the list is, when a user tries to send an email message from their smartphone, they receive an error. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this issue? Is it IMAP, SSH, POP3, SMB, or SMTP? When a user tries to send an email message from their smartphone, they receive an error. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this issue? Is it IMAP, SSH, POP3, SMB, or SMTP? Lock in your answer by going to professormesser.com/QA. Please, no answers in the chat room, no hints in the chat room. To have all of those. Would a computer use light flashes instead of beeps? No, it would not. Just uses beeps. There's no lights flashing. It'd be kind of hard to see lights flashing in some scenarios. So it would be beeping only for those. How often do we do study groups? We do one study group a month per exam that I cover on my site. So we do one for Core 1, one for Core 2, one for Network Plus, one for Security Plus for all of those. So they're absolutely there. Where the speaker's stored for post beeping, it's usually a piezo buzzer inside of the computer or a speaker inside of the computer on the motherboard. Usually it's just a buzzer that's in there that makes the beeping noise for those. User tries to send an email message from their smartphone, they receive an error. This is a real good question. Why would they receive an error? What's that all about? Where would they get the errored problems with all of these? I have to figure out the details. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this issue? Is it I pushed the wrong button. Now you're answering things about a punch down tool, didn't I? Did I just hit that? Here we go. Back to this. IMAP, SSH, POP3, SMB, and SMTP. Hitting the wrong buttons here. Lock in your answer for those. Figuring out those details. Figuring out the details of all of this. The Security Plus live training, you always go to professormesser.com/calendar or look at the calendar on the right sidebar of the website. And you can see that at professormesser.com. You'll know exactly when the next live events will be this month and next month. I usually do 2 months ahead, so you know when those will be coming up. There's also, if you go to professormesser.com/calendar, you can add the Google Calendar to your list, so they'll pop up on your calendar. Kind of nice to have that there too. So works there as well. If you do order the paper version of any of my products, course notes, practice exams, anything else, you do get the PDF as well. You can download it immediately. So you can get the digital version, read it today, and then I will ship you the physical version in the meantime. So I have all of that, which I think is kind of nice just to throw that in so you can at least get access to all of those things and figure out what all those might be as you work through them. Let's see how you did with this one. When a user tries to send an email message from their smartphone, they receive an error. Which of the following is the most likely reason for this issue? Is it IMAP, SSH, POP3, SMB, and SMTP? We started with a port question. We're sort of ending with these protocol questions, aren't we? How did we do with this one? 68% of you say it's SMTP. 16% of you say, no, it's IMAP. 14% of you say it's POP3, almost a tie for second. And kind of a tie for third as well, because 1% said SSH and 1% said SMB. Now, I think we're in the right ballpark because 98% of you thought the answer was something relating to email. So you were at least correct with that one because the user's trying to send an email message from their smartphone. So you at least zeroed in on email-related topics. And definitely IMAP is an email-related topic. POP3 is email-related. SMTP is email-related. But what are the differences between all of those? Well, in this question, you have to read very carefully, which says, when a user tries to send an email message from their smartphone. That's the key, is we are trying to send a message. And when you are sending a message, you are using SMTP, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Whenever you're receiving messages, it's actually a completely different set of protocols than when you are sending a message, at least when you're outside the scope of Outlook. When you're just using these types of email protocols, that's true. If you're sending email to a mail server, then you're using SMTP. If mail servers are sending mail to each other, it's via SMTP. So that is one where we are working to send this communication. Most often, you're also including some type of authentication with this, so you have to be able to put in a username and password just to be able to send the email message. That's how we work the security in all of this. And if you are using it with no authentication, which you usually don't use very much, it's TCP port 25. Most of the time, you are using it with authentication, and most internet providers have it set up to use TCP 587. Although I have seen internet providers that will set up their TCP 25 to effectively be the same thing as TCP 587, which means they will always require authentication if you're using SMTP with this. Now, we had other email answers in here. IMAP and POP3 are both email protocols, but they are used to receive messages, not sending. So we are receiving the messages that we have there. So this is the important part of this. And whether it's IMAP or IMAP-S, whether it's POP3 or the secure POP3, it doesn't matter because that's receiving messages, and our question was about sending messages. Now on this, you'll notice, good question from the chat room, that SMTP with authentication uses TCP 587. You've seen other places where it's been TCP 465, and it's probably where you've seen this very, very old references to SMTP. TCP 465 has been deprecated. They say do not, it's been taken out of the standard. Do not use 465 for SMTP. Use only 587. So, but for really, really old or outdated study materials or people that have never updated their study materials, they still have 465 in there for some reason. You will not be using 465. You should not be using 465 to have that there either. It's another important part of this, to have all those pieces. So that might help you as well if you're going through the details of this and trying to figure out where you would go with this, how that would work, what you would do to make all of those things happen. Those should help you as well. Maybe that will help you as you go through those. It's all about the mail. There's so many different ways to do the mail. In this case, SMTP was the right answer. Those of you that answered E did get that one absolutely correct. Well done with that. As I mentioned earlier, all the questions that we did today came directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. They are an amazing resource for you. If you do not have these objectives, you are doing yourself a significant disservice. They will list out every single thing you need to know for the exam. And I mean everything. They give you every single thing to have that available. You want to be able to look at the objectives, make sure you have them. They should be the first thing you download. They should be the last thing you reference before going into the exam. So they're the beginning and the end of your study. Go to professormesser.com/objectives, and I have a link there that sends you over to the CompTIA website, or you can type it into the Google machine, CompTIA exam objectives, and it will take you right to the page where you can download. They are incredibly important. Make sure you have them. We do another one of these study groups on Thursday. This is Tuesday the 6th. I know it seems like Monday, but it's really Tuesday. We'll figure it out eventually next week. But on the 8th, 2 days from now, same time, we do a Core 2 study group. So we've got another one of these this week. Feel free to come back. I've already written the questions. They're already ready for you. You just have to come back and see them. Also, next week on the 14th, on Wednesday, is our Network Plus study group. A week from there, on the 21st, is our Security Plus study group in October. Those are the October study groups. I guess the next 2 days is the 10th, isn't it? That's when we're doing the next A Plus study group. We also got Network Plus and Security Plus this month as well, and then not along with the 4. And if you ever want to know when the next events are, it's on professormesser.com/calendar. You will absolutely be able to do that. That is where you should go to be able to find all those. Makes sense to me to be able to find all of those pieces. We went through an hour of Q&A. Can you believe it? But we've got more Q&A. I am going to take questions from you in the next hour. This is our after show. Stick around for that, because we got plenty more there. Don't forget about the course notes and the practice exams. You can find them on the website at professormesser.com/1001success. Another link. That's a new link. 1001 Success. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. If you are watching us live on the YouTube, if you could like this video and if you could subscribe to our channel, much appreciated. The reason people say that is because the folks at Google, at YouTube, are watching these things. And I have someone at YouTube is now assigned to me. I'm able to ask her questions. She fills me in on new things that are happening. I'm only able to get that information because of your support. So being able to subscribe and like these actually are pretty important. You may not realize it, but they're, for someone who's creating content like we are, it is everything for you to be able to do that, and we really do appreciate it. Don't forget about our daily pop quiz questions also on the Instagram and the Twitter. If you're an Instagrammer, make sure you follow us there as well. That's a good place to get the daily Q&A. And don't forget about the Amazon link at professormesser.com/Amazon. Great place to go. Well, that brings us to the end of the first hour. Stick around. We have our after show in a moment. But this finishes up the main part of the study group. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Core 1 A Plus study group. Well, let's see if I can click the right buttons here on my side. Whoop, there we go. Hey, there it is. I was able to do it. It's time for the after show, everybody. Let's get some of the things together for the after show. I have, in fact, going to get my set up here so that I'm able to call in to my show. That's how it works, is I call into my own show. And then you get to call in to my show. Let me host a show. Let me start a show. Click. I have to turn this up so I can hear myself calling into a show. And then I will press a button. How do I call? How do I make a button? There we go. I call in and it says,
"Thank you for..."
Well, you're welcome. And then I click some buttons on my side. And a person says,
"Enter your 6-digit PIN."
I will do that. I'll type this in. I put in my PIN.
"Welcome, Professor Messer."
Why, thank you, nice lady. Thank you for welcoming me to this. That means that you can call in as well. I have a phone number for you right there. That is 855-785-RJ45. That is a toll-free number in the continental U.S., west of the Rockies, 855-785-7545, and you can call in. I'm also taking questions from the chat room, so you don't have to call in if you don't want to. On the voice lines, you can just ask a question there. I'll take questions from that as well. And if you are outside of the continental United States, you can also call in for free, because on Skype, you can call a toll-free number without needing any Skype minutes. You simply put a +1 at the beginning for +1 855-785-7545. You do that, it calls in as if you were sitting right here next to me, calling in and making all of that happen. So that might help you as well as we go through those pieces. See if you are familiar with all of those. Be able to break that down. From the chat room, what is your microphone? This is a Heil PR40 microphone. It's one that I've had forever. What a great microphone, too. Everything that I have here in the studio, and there's quite a bit of stuff here in the studio, the video switcher I use, the audio that I use, the monitors, computers I use, the mouse, the headphones, everything is on the website at professormesser.com/studio. So if you go to professormesser.com/studio, you can see a list of all of those things. My streaming server, what's in the streaming server, what is in the configuration. You know, some of those are a little outdated, but you'll be able to find all of those. You're able to break all of those down and see them. And you'll be able to see that. Also from the chat room, do I have any plans to create non-CompTIA related content? I kind of answered that one earlier, but the answer is sure. I'd love to do some non-CompTIA related content. I'm not stuck to any particular kind, but there's an odd formula of things I put together that says, is it worthwhile to do a course on this topic? And it may not be completely obvious to you, but we really do have a method to the madness. That is what we do behind the scenes here. So hopefully that can give you an idea of, I don't have anything to announce. There's nothing there that I'm doing right now. Right now we're doing the new Security Plus. But after that, there may be some things. There might be some things happening. Might be working of some of that and be able to have that there. And the details. We'll have to figure out those. Let's go to the phone lines and go to the 732 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor Messer, this is John, and I am calling from New Jersey.
Hello, John from Jersey. What can we do for you?
So I have a question for you about, I have a question about one of your questions on the practice exam. First of all, thanks so much for the study groups and for the videos. They're fantastic.
Great.
And it's absolutely incredible that you put all this stuff out there. So absolutely wonderful.
Quite welcome. Thank you.
But I had a question about one of your practice exam questions. And I don't remember exactly which question it was, but it mentions it's a question about wearable technology.
Okay.
And the question states that a company is developing or managing something for wearable technology, and basically the answers were pick which answer is the wearable technology, and the two possible answers would have been virtual reality or smartwatch. Now, I chose the smartwatch answer, but I believe the CompTIA Objectives list virtual reality as a wearable technology, so it was kind of a bit vague. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that, and why. I guess why is the question worded the way it's worded? Because technically VR could have been the answer, because it's technically wearable technology. It's listed as wearable technology in the CompTIA Objectives. Is that right?
Well, I think you could probably make a case for VR being a wearable technology because you do wear it. But in the larger, I think, definition of wearable technology, it's a technology that you wear around all day. It's something that you take with you when you are going places. Something like a smartwatch, that's wearable. Something like a fitness monitor, absolutely wearable. VR, we aren't quite at the point where we're wearing our VR around everywhere we go these days. If it was a Google Glasses, which of course that
Right.
they didn't really make it. They're not around anymore. But if there were some, I could count that as wearable technology. I'm not going to buy that. Although you are correct that the exam objectives put VR under wearable technology, VR is not a wearable technology. That's another example of the exam objectives not being quite precise in what they do. Not the only incorrect thing that is in the exam objectives, but definitely it's miscategorized in the list of things. So that is not one I would consider to be wearable, at least not currently. Maybe someday. Although if you're VR, you really can't see anything. That's not augmented reality. It's virtual reality. You probably run into a light pole. So probably not the best wearable technology you would run into. But something that I don't think I would categorize it that way, which is why I wrote the question with that in there, because that's not one that counts in anybody's terms, except the exam objectives as it turns out. The answer on it, I don't think you're going to get an answer on the exam that's going to ask you to differentiate between those or to fix a badly written set of categorizations in a set of exam objectives. So it's not something that they're going to catch you on the exam, or you're not going to have to know which one to answer wrong so you get it right. They don't tend to do that. They know that when you run into those things, it's not going to be something that's going to be an issue. So not at least you don't have to worry about the answer on an exam, but having broken down the answer and how I approach the idea of wearable and really how the industry approaches the idea of wearable, VR doesn't quite fit in that category.
Gotcha. So they're more looking at wearable as in watches, Fitbits, things of that nature. Not so much VR headset, because you can't really wear that for more than like an hour or two at a time without having to recharge it.
That's true too. That's true as well. And I also find it's interesting. The market for wearable has kind of fallen off a bit too. I guess smartwatches ended up being the wearable technology. Fitbits and those technologies are sort of waning in their popularity as the smartwatches get better. So maybe we're going to end up with just one thing for wearable, which would be just your watch. We'll see.
Yeah, until smart glasses or something gets developed.
If we don't fight each other over the smart glasses, yes, I think that will be fine too. All these people were getting attacked over their smart glasses. I think that was a big reason Google got rid of them. The lawyers made them do it. But who knows? You never know. We might end up with that someday.
Yeah. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you explaining that to me, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, John. You too. I appreciate it. Thanks for calling. Let's go back to the phones. We've got 757. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor Messer. This is Jay from Norfolk, Virginia.
Hey, Jay. What can we do for you?
So I just want to first say thank you like everyone else. Like, you are the man. I appreciate your contributions. I'm new to the field, so thank you.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I'm a recent graduate of Old Dominion University. I minored in cybersecurity, and like I said, I just recently found out about you.
Nice.
I decided to, start with Security Plus, and I failed it. I didn't do my best. I know I didn't do my best, so I want to get back at it. But after researching, I realized I'm really interested in cloud. So I would like to get into that realm of information technology. But I'm currently in school for my master's in cybersecurity.
Okay.
All while doing that, I just purchased your SYO 501 course notes and everything.
Oh, great. Thank you.
And I'm interested. Yeah, and I'm interested in the A+. So I want to get one of these certifications to feel good, just to feel accomplished.
Right.
I realized that I realized that the cloud-based platforms may not require these CompTIA certifications, but like I said, it's something I want to do for myself to get a good foundation, and
Sure.
that's the purpose of them. I realize. But I'm trying to figure out how can I, work my way into some sort of information technology position in a professional sports organization, because that's my dream
Nice.
thing that I would like to do. So I'm just trying to get some advice. I don't know who to talk to, and I'm watching your videos. You look very informal and all this. So could you possibly give me some advice?
Well, this is one of these interesting places where when you say cybersecurity or you even say the cloud, these are very broad categories with so many different segments within each one of those. So let's even combine these together and look at cybersecurity in the cloud, because there's different segments of that as well. You kind of got a good investment in cybersecurity that you're working on. It'll be a shame just to not do anything security related, because the industry needs really good security people. There's just not enough out there. And it's a pretty lucrative part of IT on the security, both the security and the cloud side. You can't go wrong really from any perspective. From a security perspective, if we just look at the cloud aspect of IT security, you have so many things you could be working on. One is just protecting the existing data that companies have in the cloud. Almost every company has some type of public cloud service that they are providing. So you, of course, as a security professional, have to protect the data. You have to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities that people are able to take advantage of because the systems are out in the cloud. You have to be sure that if people are accessing those systems, that they are following certain security protocols and policies that you have set up. So there are security tools that are running in the cloud, firewalls in the cloud, being able to track vulnerabilities and protect against those for your cloud-based systems. So just the IT security side, there's an important cloud-based link to security, to the cybersecurity side of things. The other piece, perhaps an emerging or certainly a fast-growing part of the field, is on being able to identify threats and be able to block threats that are coming into the network as fast as possible. Usually it's looking for vulnerabilities and stopping the threats. And there's an enormous amount of work going on right now with being able to collect many threat feeds, because there are many third-party organizations that you can subscribe to their feed. And as soon as they know about a vulnerability, they will send it to you. So there's all this sharing that's going on right now in cybersecurity with being able to fuse these feeds together, look at all the data coming from your intrusion prevention system, all the logs coming from your firewalls, all of the authentication logins to your VPN and to your Windows Active Directory domain, pull all of that into an enormous data field, an enormous grouping of data, and be able to perform data analysis on that. Basically, you become a data scientist and being able to use big data to identify when somebody might be attacking you. This is a very cutting edge part of IT security right now, but there's an entire group of people that are focused on fuse this vulnerability and fusing together all of the data with the analytics and being able to identify in real time when an attack has started and in real time be able to block the attack. It is the next level in IT security and cyber warfare, if you will. It's an intriguing part. It's really emerging right now, but it is remarkable what people are able to do on that side. And then, of course, there's the side from a cloud computing perspective of being able to take all of this data and share it with others, and being able to understand what's happening on your cloud network right now, being able to take advantage of more of an administrative function with cybersecurity. So there's different parts you can focus on and really know how to deploy new security systems into the cloud and being able to manage the orchestration of those. So those three separate sections are by themselves a pretty useful thing to work through. If you're somebody who's really interested in security and you're interested in the cloud, those are three areas where you will definitely have plenty to do, probably for the rest of your career. If you're really working to get any level of security at all, whether it's cloud-based insecurity or just the cloud in general, I would also recommend you get as big a foundation as you can in networking. Obviously, the cloud itself is kind of a virtual world. There's no you're kind of building systems out of this virtualized platform that you have, but everything is so based on the network. There is a strong emphasis in being able to segment the network, protect the network, separate VLANs. Maybe everything's on its own routed network. You have to understand how that information is being sent over the internet, probably redundantly. So there's all kinds of routing protocols you have to know. Just a complex foundation of networking you really must know if you're ever planning to get into the security side. So if I had to kind of point you in any direction for security, for cloud security, and be able to do that, get your foundation in networking. You've already got the security piece layered on top of that. Maybe getting some cloud computing knowledge would be the next step. But if you're doing anything in security these days, that's going to come naturally. As soon as you are able to get onto the network, it's all in the cloud anyway. Try to get as much training and knowledge as you can in Python and being able to work orchestration. If you go into any cloud computing job, they're going to ask you how much Python you know. And the more you know, the better off you're going to be. So that's sort of the touch points I would focus on if I were you, Jay.
Yeah, I actually just signed up for one of the Google IT support little Python classes in like cloud computing. So yeah, I actually just recently finished one of those fundamentals for like help desk. So to offer like financial aid for students. So I'm just awaiting to hear back from that. So I'm just trying to gain as much knowledge, like I said, I'm new, and I'm hungry. I just I want to set a good foundation, and I know this field is going to be here. And it's only going to continue to grow. And I want to be a part of it.
It's a good place to go. You got the right idea. I like that Google certification. If for no other reason, I think they give you a very good foundation of some of the skills you need to be able to work in a cloud-based infrastructure. They don't give you everything you need. No certification gives you everything, but it's kind of nice to get, there's a little bit of a cloud, there's a little bit of operating system, there's a little bit of networking, and a little bit of Python thrown in there. That's a good mix in my mind.
And you know something, Professor Messer, like, you said that you think it's good, like me making the decision on continuing my master's, versus, actually paying for that. I'm paying for this out of pocket versus, I was able to receive financial aid from Google, Coursera, that's very important. And that's something that people should really consider. That's, just something that I should let people know. Financial aid is possible for Coursera, for anybody versus, continue your education, which is going to be much more expensive. And that's it's serious.
No doubt. No doubt. And that's a great thing to bring up, too. A lot of people think I need to pay for it all right now. There are some options available in the industry, and some of them are pretty good.
I'm sitting here. Got to write all these papers for my master's tonight, but I'll get through it.
You're doing the right thing, Jay. Keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you. Yes, sir. Thank you. And I'm only 23, man. So thank you.
It's an exciting world in front of you. I'm looking forward to hearing what comes next. Keep us apprised.
You will hear from me again. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate the call. It's one of those things you can't go wrong with these sets of topics that you're working towards. If you're doing anything with the network, with the cloud, with security, these are all technologies that are just blowing up right now. You're at the forefront of, 10 years ago, it was the virtualization world. Well, we figured that out, but we still have not figured out the cloud. We still have not gotten to the nth degree of how we can make the cloud dance for us because we're learning how to do things in new ways all the time and being able to make that happen. So that's great to hear. I know people have been holding a long time, so let me go back to these phones. Thank you, caller 443, for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. My name's Chris. I'm calling from Maryland today.
Hey, Chris. What can we do for you?
So I had a real quick question and then more of an abstract question that probably doesn't have a very good answer.
Oh, good. I like those. Hit me.
Helpful. So quick one. I'm a little confused with the language around the power on self-test. So if something said it didn't post, that would mean that there was error. Something's wrong. You don't get to go to BIOS screen. Like that's the end. It didn't post. The end. Figure out why. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on what the problem was. So the power on self-test is kind of what it sounds like. It is a bare minimum hardware and in some ways software check when you start the computer up. It checks to see, is the memory there? And is it just, can I at least see it and count how much is there? Yes. Is the CPU there? Yep, I see a CPU. Is a keyboard connected? Yep. Is there a video card so I can show something on the screen? Yes. Is the BIOS available and everything working the way it's supposed to? Yes, it's working. That's it. That's your power on self-test. It's pretty basic. It takes 2 seconds and it's done. If there's a problem with any one of those things, that's where suddenly everything stops and says, whoa, your post did not work properly. The post process was interrupted. Your post failed. Your CPU doesn't work. The memory's not working properly. The BIOS, something screwy's going on with your BIOS. The video card wasn't found or your keyboard's not connected. That's it. Other than that, if there's some other problem with your operating system, you've got malware infection, there's a critical operating system file was accidentally deleted, you don't know about it yet. You haven't even got to that point yet. You're just trying to see if the bare hardware of the system can support an operating system running, and that's what the post is all about. So if somebody says post failed, it's one of those things that failed.
Would you ever say the computer didn't post? I feel like I've read that before.
Yeah,
and I wasn't sure what the language on that.
Yeah, there's nothing here specific.
But that means the same thing.
Yeah, there's no specific language to describe the post not working. Post ain't working is perfectly reasonable way to describe post not working right.
Okay, and that's opposed to it did post or it passed in post or whatever it completed the post and maybe the monitor still there's nothing on the screen. Then you could go to, monitor problems, cables, whatever it could be. But you've gotten past the post now.
You got it. That's exactly right.
That's how you would say it.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So more abstract. Real quick backstory. I don't in IT. I've been studying for the exam about a month. I took it last week online, missed it by 20 points. And, they give you the drill down of the topics you missed. And, of course, there's like 16 of them because anything you might have missed is a lot. But there's almost everything in the troubleshooting section.
Okay.
And that's what I assume I missed the most on. And so basically, what do I do to learn troubleshooting? I don't work in IT. I'm at home. I got a pretty sweet gaming computer I built, not bragging.
Great.
But besides that, it's really hard for me to learn how to troubleshoot someone else's wireless network or phone, or, I kind of have those things, but it's hard to come up with the problems that are on the test.
It's true. And they give you, at least on the exam objectives, they give you a set of things that could go wrong. They're at least giving you a finite list, because we know when something goes wrong on a computer, it could be one of a million things that could happen. But at least they give you a high-level list of these 20 things that could possibly go wrong. These 10 things with the starting of the computer, these 4 things with the network, these 7 things with, they go through this list of things. They're all in the exam objectives. The best possible scenario is if you had a computer that you could break things, that you could had a video card, you could unplug the video card, or you could take out the RAM and start the computer up and see what happens. Or you could take out the CPU and start the computer and see what happens. But not all of us have that luxury or the ability to do something like that. I've given a summary of them in my videos, but there's only so much you can do in a video like that. Getting the hands-on is really some of the best things that you can do. There are some virtual hands-on options available out there, some better than others. But getting your hands on an actual computer can sometimes be the best thing. You've built your own computer, so you've sort of probably run into some of these. If you've ever built a computer, there's always something wrong that happens when you're building this thing. So you probably got a couple of those. There you go. Never works the first time. So you probably hit at least 1 or 2 of those on your path to getting the thing up and running. Then suddenly it starts. You're like, I don't believe it. This thing started up. Okay, we're going to go with this. But there you may have an opportunity to pop open the machine, take all the RAM out of your computer, restart it back up again just to see what happens. Perfectly reasonable lab. That'd be a good way to see what happens when the post fails. How many times does my computer beep? What does it show on the screen? All of those things are important and useful. So that's one of those things that might help you too, is to get as much hands-on or lab time as humanly possible. It's kind of hard to do it virtually. You sort of need a real computer to be able to work on that. But if you've ever plugged in a USB drive and that was bootable, but it didn't have an operating system on it, and you told your BIOS to boot from the USB drive, you've seen the errors come up that say no operating system found. So those are things you could try as well. You can do a lot of things with your computer and not break it, just to see what happens when these types of problems run into it. And you could probably get through, I don't know, half of the troubleshooting issues that are listed in the exam objectives just by configuring your system incorrectly. Just take lots of pictures of your BIOS before you make any BIOS changes, just so you know what it was set to when everything was working properly, and you'd be okay.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
Have a try through that. There's no single best answer for that one, but I think there's those 4 things I always mention you have to pass these exams. One is a good book. One is some good videos. The third is getting plenty of really good hands-on. And the fourth is doing plenty of Q&A. So if you have all 4 of those things, you probably have the best possible chance. And it's kind of hard to get a lot of good hands-on. It's kind of hard to find a lot of good Q&A. So those are the 2 things people, I think, probably struggle with the most, but probably the 2 things that can help you the most.
And one more little tiny follow-up.
Sure.
So when it comes to troubleshooting, something that I think maybe I'm doing wrong, and I'm trying to rethink as studying to hopefully take this again this coming weekend, is following the exact steps of the troubleshooting methodology, whatever CompTIA calls it, their scientific method.
Yes. Yep.
I think I skipped over that just a little bit because it seems so kind of obvious in some ways, and maybe I'm missing the point of not identifying all the problems, or not stopping to establish the theory before I'm ready to fix something, when skipping steps in that too. So I think that's part of it, but overall that's it. That's all my questions.
Well, great questions all the way around. I appreciate it, Chris. And you're so close to passing. Just a little bit more time. I think you're going to be just fine the next time through.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the call. One of the things, it's kind of a gimme, but that that breakdown of the troubleshooting process, those are kind of some gimme answers on the exam. If you know the process, and it's a numbered process in the exam objectives, if you know that process cold, you probably get at least probably a couple questions on that, maybe more, that ask you just what do you do next in this process. So it's one of those that might give you a gimme when you work through these things. It just depends on the scenario you're working through. From the chat room, well, before we go back to the phones, I know you've been holding a while. Thank you for holding. The chat room, no, this is it's a real fireplace. That's a real background. That's all of this stuff back here is real. It's not a green screen. Can I throw stuff on it? There we go. So there you go. I threw stuff back there. It's not, or maybe it was the best green screen. It's an interactive green screen. Are you kidding me? Is that No, it's not a green screen. It's a real. The reason it looks so good that it looks like it couldn't possibly be it's the best possible green screen is that it's not. It's not. Yeah, maybe I'm actually not real. It's all virtual for all of this. We'll have to see what comes of that. Let's go back to the phones, the 559 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. Are you there?
Hello?
Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, I'm calling from Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
Thank you. Well, actually, to be honest, I'm looking to change career. I'm a pilot instructor.
Okay.
So since with all these crises with the COVID, the market is really down, and I'm mainly here down at the south, right?
Sure.
So I found your website, and I always have been very interested in IT. And actually, thank you very much. It has been very useful for me, and I hope to write the 1001 next week. So my question is, since I'm brand new in this area, how do I know which models of motherboards I should study for the 1001? Mainly, if they ask me about to choose any specific motherboard for a specific job computer.
Well, fortunately, there's very little of that on the exam you have to worry about. So there's not a huge emphasis in motherboards or having to pick out a particular one. I think the one thing you probably have to know on the exam from a motherboard perspective is the sizes, the relative sizes, not the exact sizes. You don't have to memorize how many millimeters long and how many millimeters wide. But you do have to know that there's one size that is the biggest. There's one kind of a little bit smaller, and then there's some that are really small, because you might get a question that asks when you're planning to put a streaming server next to your computer, but you don't have a lot of room. So what would be the smallest possible motherboard size to provide that functionality? And then you have to know, well, it's not an ATX, so what could it be? And if you know that the smallest ones and the medium-sized ones and then the largest ones, you'll be able to figure out those types of questions. So that's where I would mention also, that's probably one of the best things you can do, is to go from that perspective too. That might at least minimize the pain in trying to troubleshoot, trying to memorize all of those specific tiny, how wide is it, how tall. Don't worry about that. Just it's relative, and it's at least
thank God, because
yes.
I was really worried. I was really worried about it.
Thankfully, no, you do not have to get down to that level. They're at least a little logical in the type of information they're asking. And as I mentioned, hardly any of this is one where they're asking you trivia. Almost all of this is going to be kind of a real world question. How do you troubleshoot? What is your next step? What is the best option? Those are the types of questions you're going to get.
Oh, okay, perfect. No, actually, thank you very much. And I have another quick question. I'm getting ready for this exam next week. So since I haven't seen that much, or I haven't heard of people talking about this online exam, how do I have to get prepared, or my room, how my room must be prepared for this test? I heard that I have to take some pictures around. I have to be prepared like 30 minutes before.
You do. It's as if if you've ever gone to a testing center. These testing centers are very closed environments. It's a small room with a door. It's all closed in. It's very secure. It's an environment where there's no cheating. They've got a camera on you. They want you to do the same thing at your house. So they hope that they encourage you to have a room that you can close a door and be closed in. So there's 4 walls. They want to be sure there's no writing materials near you. They want to be sure that there is a place, there's no cameras anywhere. There's nothing written down anywhere. They have you take pictures around the room and submit them. They make sure you have a camera so they can watch you the whole time and listen to you the whole time. So all of those things are really useful. They give you a list of them. If you go to the CompTIA website and you look at the on-view requirements, they list all of those requirements. So they give you an idea of what to expect. And what they do is before you ever sign up for the exam, you go ahead and you load the software on and you go through the process as if you were ready to take the exam, which really checks all of these things and takes you through a set of checklists so that you know that. So that's where that's the easiest way to do it. And then once you've checked the room, you pass that piece of it, then you can book your exam and go through the rest of the process. It sounds like it's a little bit of a pain to get started and set up, but once you really get everything in place, you're fine. You're ready to go. You just have to remember they're always watching you during the exam. They're always listening to you during the exam. You can't have headphones on. You can't have a pencil. You can't put your hand over your mouth. It's all about making sure that the exam and experience is as secure as possible. So that's where you would focus on. There's a lot of people on the CompTIA subreddit that have gone through this that give their experiences. That's a good place to go. And of course, the OnView website has a list of all of those requirements. Make sure you know about all of those as well.
All right. Thank you very much. It was very clear.
I appreciate the call.
It, and thank you very much again for all your help with this amazing website.
Absolutely.
Take
Best
care.
of
Bye-bye.
luck. Thank you so much. Appreciate the call. That's always a good question because if you're going to take this exam at home, that's going to be important. That during the call, some of you saw that I put up on the Instagram picture of me standing behind the desk. That's what it looks like if you were standing in front of me right now, and you can see sort of the whole set back there, everything that is there in better color. This is where the camera is that you are seeing me on, or when you do see me. These are the lights up here that are out of the shot. That's why whenever you look at the big shot up here, the lights are up here, so you just don't see them. That's why it looks like it's dark in here. It really is dark in front of me. All the light is going this direction because that's what you see. Why would I light the other direction? Just to have that there. So that is why. Is this at my home? Yes, it is at my home. But it is we sort of built a separate studio just for this. So it's sort of, this is my boat. This is my sports car. It's just in one room and it doesn't go anywhere. That's one of those situations that you run into. Back to the phones. Let's go to 484. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Sean from right outside of Philly, Pennsylvania.
Hey, Sean from Philly. What can we do for you?
Nothing, man. I just want to give you a quick shout out and say you are the man with all these notes and videos, dude. It's helping me out so much. I'm trying to get my foot in the door in IT industry.
Oh, that's great.
So this is helping me out a lot.
Glad to hear it. Which course are you looking at, or which course are you going through right now?
I'm going to go through the A+ certification right now. I'm on the 1001. I'm studying for it.
Perfect. So is there a particular thing you're working towards? Is there a job that you're looking at? Is there a particular goal that you have once you get through the A+?
Yeah, so again, like I said, right now I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. So I'm trying to go for like a help desk support, any type of them entry-level jobs. Again, my brother's a full-stack developer. And
okay.
I kind of like what he does. So again, I'm just trying to get my foot in the door and trying to get some experience on my belt.
Perfect for you. And if you're in a particularly good geography for this, because there's just tons of IT jobs in that particular area. The best thing I can even tell you is to go through the list of job openings that are available right now. Try to find those companies that are looking for A+ or looking for, like you mentioned, that help desk position, and make sure you're getting all the things that they're asking for. That's one of the best things you can do. And that way, when you submit your resume to them, you can effectively customize your resume with exactly what they're asking for. Oh, do you want an A+? I have the A+. You want experience in this operating system? Here's my experience in that operating system. Those are things that can help as well. So it's important, of course, that you get certifications, that you learn the material so that you can get that foot in the door. But getting the foot in the door is sometimes the hardest part of this, and you have to customize sometimes your approach to those particular employers to give yourself the best possible statistics, the best possible chance of getting into that particular job. You've got the right idea, though.
Yeah, exactly like you said. It's kind of tough getting your foot in the door without any experience. It's not like it's a construction job where a lot of jobs, they kind of just need laborious guys. That's what I used to do before, and I'm trying to get into this technology and, learn this industry, and, I kind of want to be proficient in it. So another question for you is kind of a personal question. Would you rather take the test in a testing center? Because I'm sure there's one around here. Or would you rather take it at home? I know it's kind of, whatever you're comfortable with, but what would your recommendation be?
Well, that was not the would you rather question I was looking for. And I've said this before in the study groups, and I said this prior to the online test being available. But back then, I said I would just go to a testing center. I have a bit of complication in that my setup here is probably the best place to take an exam, and this would not qualify for taking an exam because you only get one monitor. All the other monitors have to be unplugged. You can't have anything near you. If they saw this setup on the CompTIA side as I was trying to take this, on the OnView side as I was trying to take the test, they would say, no, you can't take the test in there. What are you thinking? No way. You've got to take the test somewhere else that is a lot less prone to any security issues for us. And I don't have a lot of places in my house to do that. So I would always say, well, there's a lot of setup you have to do in most environments. You have to make sure you only have one monitor. You have to get rid of all of the written books and things that are around you. You have to get rid of all the things off your desk. There's a lot of setup you have to do to make that happen. And for me, I don't want to have to go through all of that. I just want to go to a test center, sit down, take the exam, walk out. That way I can focus on the exam content and not focus on making sure or worrying that my networking setting is going to stay up, that my internet provider isn't going to crash, that my computer isn't going to crash, that my room that I've got is going to work out okay. And there have been cases where people are taking the exam at home where the exam software has crashed and created problems. Those are rare when they happen, but they do happen. So my ease, I happen to have a testing center that I think is about 5 minutes from my house. So it's so convenient for me just to go to that testing center, take the test, and walk out. But not everybody is in that position. And not everybody has the same worries about setting all of these things up and getting them going. A lot of people find that taking the test at home was a brilliant experience. It was exactly what they wanted. It was very well set up for them. They went through it without a problem, and it was incredibly convenient. So it is more of a personal preference question. Do you like taking a test at home? Do you like taking in a testing center? I think they've done a very good job at rolling out the online testing. Better than I was expecting, quite honestly. Maybe I had low expectations, but they did a pretty good job of it. So because of that, if I was forced into it, if suddenly I called my local testing center and they said, nope, we're not doing it, but I had to get this test done, I'd take it at home. I'd set it up. I go through the process because you don't have a choice. But I would obviously have to do a little bit of work beforehand to make that happen. And I've heard stories online of people saying, I took my test in my bathroom because I could close the door. Nobody could come in and bother me. I could lock the door. It was obviously clear of any technology that I had to worry about, and I just took it in there. It only took me an hour, sat down, had my laptop, went through it, and I was done. I get it. And that may be a perfectly reasonable place to do it for a lot of people. So why not take advantage of that? I think either way works out pretty well. As long as you have a good place to take it, you are comfortable, your head is in a good place, and you are concentrating on the exam and the content, take it whichever way makes sense for you. But I would pick testing center first, at home a close second. I don't think that's a far second at this point. I think it's a close second. But that is the 1-2 in my list.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm probably going to go that route with doing it at the testing center. I don't know exactly with the whole pandemic and everything. I don't know if they're doing, testing, but I'm going to call and make sure. But awesome. Thank you very much. And again, Professor Messer, you are the man.
Thank you, Sean. I'm doing the easy part. You're the one that has to take the test. Best of luck.
Thanks. Goodbye, man.
That is one of those things you have to figure out before you take this exam, is where are you going to do it? There are advantages and disadvantages. I think it's more of a mental thing, because I mentioned all these problems that could happen if you're taking your test at home. Well, certainly problems can happen when you're taking your test in a testing center. I've been in a testing center and the software's crashed, and I've had to get the proctor come in, restart everything, and we were back up and running again. So it can happen anywhere. I think it's more about where your head is at the time, where your thinking is. Are you in a place where you're expecting it to have a problem? Do you think there might be an issue with it? And if you are ready for it, and you're prepared for that eventuality, then you're probably okay if something happens. I haven't heard anybody say, I was cheated out of my certification because of the things that happened. Pearson VUE and their OnView system has been very good about when things crash in the middle and you're not able to finish, they will reschedule you for another one. So nothing seems to be inevitable. The only time I really heard of somebody having a problem was they were in a room, their little brother came in to the room, saw they were taking the test, ran out of the room, but that's not allowed. Other people are not allowed in the room, and they failed them immediately. Like, you're failed. Click. That's it. You're done. It's part of the rules and regulations, the terms of service. When you signed up for it, if somebody comes in the room, you fail the test. It's written very plainly. Well, somebody came in the room, they failed the test. They would have to pay again to take the exam. So you don't want to be in that position. You want to be in a room where you can really lock everything down. Nobody can bother you. Not everybody has that luxury, but there are cases where you can make that happen. Back to phone calls. To the 910 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey there. I'm Chris, and I'm calling from Illinois.
Hey, Chris. What can we do for you?
Well, first of all, glad to be on, and I want to say thank you so much for all your videos. And thanks to the videos and the course notes, I was able to pass my Core 1.
Oh, nice.
Barely, but I still passed it. So
pass is a pass. That means that you studied
still...
just the right amount, Chris.
Yeah. I'm really happy I don't have to retake it. And back to what you said about the testing center, it's a lot less intimidating than I thought it would be, and I'm really happy I did the testing center and one was open near me. So
great.
It was a great experience, and I really would recommend anybody doing that.
Perfect. Fantastic. So now it's Core 2, right?
Okay, and now I'm studying for Core 2, but my friend, I got him on your videos, and I actually convinced him to start studying for the help desk job too.
Good.
So he's been looking into it, and he's going through all the material that I just went through. So I just wanted to ask, am I allowed to ask a question that was on my exam, or is the SWAT going to show up at my door?
Well, that probably wouldn't be the SWAT team, but of course, everybody who takes a CompTIA exam has to digitally sign a document at the beginning, which is a candidate agreement, which says that you cannot tell anybody anything about this exam experience. It's very specific. It's just this broad categorization that says, nope, any part of the exam you can't say anything about. But if you had a question about a technology that you were just saying, what is this technology about? Well, that obviously is not something that was a question or a detail from your exam. So the CompTIA does, of course, reserve the right to revoke your certification if you are telling people what is on the exam. So there is that disclaimer.
Gotcha.
I'll, of course, tell you before you mention anything about that. But I imagine most people are able to put it in a form where if there's a question about a technology or something like that, we can of course talk about that.
Okay, well, I'll just ask a similar question that I saw in a practice test then, not on the actual one.
Perfect.
So it just had me a little confused. It's about laptop hardware. So when you replace the faulty screen of a laptop, and then after the replacement, the screen works, but you have very weak Wi-Fi signal. And I narrowed down the answers to maybe 2. And is it because after replacing the screen, did you damage the antennas? Or it also said maybe the antennas are too close to the inverter, which I don't think might be the case, but maybe it causes interference. So again, it's weak signal, not no signal.
This is, in fact, I have a question like this in my test as well, because it's a common problem and one I've run into as well. I've replaced LCD screens on laptops before, and if you've ever done this, the wires for Bluetooth, and there may be 1 or even 2 separate wires for Wi-Fi, wrap around the Wi-Fi screen. They wrap around the outside of the bezel where the screen goes. So you can very often take out the screen without touching those, and they just keep going around the top, because when you lift the laptop screen up, that's the highest point. So it makes sense that they've got a wire running all around the edge of that screen so that it gets as high as possible when you're using the computer. And so if you're working inside of it and you're replacing the screen, there's certainly a chance that you could dislodge the antenna connection from the Bluetooth or the 802.11 adapter or radio. It's possible that you cut or damaged one of the wires that was the antenna. That would certainly cause a problem. But because those wires themselves are in the computer, pretty much everything in that computer is going to create some type of electrical signal interference. But that's why we run on 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz frequencies, is because we don't tend to run into a 60 hertz signal down at the power level. So we don't have to worry too much about that. So it's rare that something else in your computer would be causing interference with wireless or Bluetooth, because it doesn't matter how close your wires are to it. They're inside that laptop. They're pretty close right now, assuming you have an inverter. But that also means that you've got a really old laptop too, which is possible too, that if it has an inverter inside of it. But it's usually something relating to the antenna wire. It either became disconnected or you broke it yourself. You damaged it when you were putting the screen back in. Very rarely, or if never, would it be because it's near the inverter, and mostly because it's going up along the top of the bezel on the outside, and your inverter is usually down near the bottom. They're usually not anywhere near each other. So I don't think that would be much of a problem.
Okay. And if I may, can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have 2 prepared. So I'm studying for the Core 2 now. I was going to tune into your study group for the Core 2, unless you allow me to ask that question now. But if not, I can just ask another Core 1.
You can ask questions now about anything. It doesn't have to even be about certification. So go for it.
Gotcha. Okay. So my question is, I was messing around in the command center as an administrator just to try to copy some files using the command prompt. And I'm able to copy, like, let's say I make a folder and I want to copy that whole folder into another folder. Every time I try to copy, whether it's robust copy or just normal copy, I copy the contents of that folder, but I'm not able to copy the physical folder and place it somewhere else. So I see the files in the new folder, but I don't see the actual folder I want to copy. So I know you can do that with the move command, but then you're not copying, you're just moving, you're cutting something.
Right.
So is there a way to copy the whole folder and not just the contents?
There is, but you would copy the folder, you would copy effectively one folder above it, and then specify that you want to do a recursive copy, which would then copy everything underneath the location that you are specifying. So instead of copying the contents of a folder, you copy the contents of the folder above it, but specify only the folder that you're trying to copy recursively. That's one of the easiest ways to do it.
What's the command for that?
So in Windows, I'll even bring it up since you are working through that. I've got my Parallels desktop. We'll take care of it right now. I'll just load up my Windows 10 and we'll do some copies with this. This is one becomes useful. This recursiveness helps not just in Windows, but in Linux as well. If anybody's ever had to do set permissions in Linux, but you wanted to set a permission for the current directory and then every directory underneath it, then you would go through the process of setting a chmod or and then use the /r to do a recursive chmod where it goes not just this folder, but every folder underneath as well. Those are very useful. It comes
so
in
let's say
handy
the
for
folder's on the desktop. So you would change directory to the desktop, and then you wouldn't specify the name of the folder right away. You would just start the copy at the desktop, then do the /r recursive, and then put the name of the folder you want to.
Well, in case of the, let's say we're going to do a robocopy, because that's the one that has the most functionality in there. Let's do a robocopy. I'm going to bring up on my screen so we can see some of these options that are here, because robocopy only has like 1 million options associated with it and being able to use it. So here we go. And I will choose, in fact, the option on here. Oh, can I even move the screen over? There we go. I'm going to bring up my robocopy and show the screen. I'll describe it to you since we have people that are watching this as well. But here's robocopy, where you copy from a source to a destination. One of the options in robocopy that does the recursiveness is the /s option, which copies subdirectories, but not empty ones. But you can choose the /e to copy both subdirectories and empty subdirectories. So if you were doing the copy, you would copy maybe from the desktop with a /s and then the name of the folder that you wanted to copy. And it would copy all of that and then copy the folder and then copy everything underneath the folder. So it goes through all those subdirectories. That is one of the easiest ways to copy all of that. And again, you're right. Now you're copying it instead of using the move or the move command to use the entire folder and copy the folder with that robocopy instead of just moving it from place to place.
Okay. Well, thanks for clearing that up. I couldn't find that on any YouTube video or anything like that, so that's awesome. I can do that now. And one last thing. Sorry, I know I said 2 questions, but final question. I think it could benefit everybody trying to take the test. When you buy the retake voucher, so not just the exam voucher, but the one in case you fail it, so you can take it again. Let's say you pass that core 1, even though you have a retake. Can you apply that retake to core 2, or are they specific?
I don't believe you can apply it to another sitting. I think once you pass, it's done. You've extinguished everything. I believe that's the case. I'm not a CompTIA partner. I don't sell their vouchers. I don't do any of that. But what I know of that particular voucher, that's how it works. If somebody knows anything different, or if I've got that one wrong, they're more than welcome to yell at me in the chat room or send me a message and straighten me out. But I think that's how it works.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for answering these questions, and I can't wait to get through my core 2 and hopefully network and security after that. So thanks again, and good luck to everybody studying, and you guys got this. So
best of luck, Chris. Thanks so much. That is one of those things that really is a challenge. Okay, so they only send you the retake voucher if you fail. If you don't fail, well, then they just don't send you the retake voucher. So that makes sense. See, they've already thought of this, those folks at CompTIA. They've already got everything going there. So very easy. Folks in the chat room, a question they asked earlier, am I a gamer? Wonder if Professor Messer plays video games. I try to. There's not much time right now. I'm working on the Security Plus, just finished the course notes book, working on Security Plus now. I'm trying to get through it as fast as possible. My goal is to finish Security Plus so that I can then play video games. So that's my challenge, is getting through all of that. I would love to go back and play some Division 2, maybe do a little bit of Eve, maybe do, who knows what else I can get into. I like to just sit on the Xbox at night because I sit in front of the computer all day. I try not to do a lot of computing. Well, that's not the best view of this. So this is where I am pretty much all day. But if I'm doing something that is not this, not content creation, not creating any of these things, if I would like to play a game, I'd rather not sit here and do it. I'd rather sit on my couch and do it. So it allows me to get out of here and really relax. That's the way to do it. If there were only more hours in the day, you have to make more hours. That's something about that. To have it, definitely no Fortnite. I am not of an age where I can keep up with the kids. So not my gig, not my thing. If it's twitchy, nah, it's not. No, I don't mean twitchy like the service, not Twitch. I mean like if you have to shoot somebody first, nope, not me. PvP, nope. PvE, yes. A group of people fighting the bad guy PvE, I'm in. We can handle that. But not the other ones. No. Not gonna. I've not played Horizon. There are all these games I've not played that I'm dying to play and have not. So do I have an idea when practice exams for A+ Core 2 will be available? Last week. I love saying that now. Let's go back to the phone lines. 845. Hi, caller. Which name are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Matt from Jacksonville.
Matt, Florida Matt. How are you, sir? What can we do for you?
Well, I'm taking my exam tomorrow, and I'm actually taking it from home too. I'm not super stressed out about it. It's
Good.
Easy to keep your room, empty. But
Right.
I was just wondering. I had kind of like I'm trying to like. I like your materials because you kind of have to analyze how something would need to function to derive the answer. And that's really how I'm trying to learn these things.
Good.
And so I was it's a real niche question about cables. Like what are some good identifiers to like recognize when you would want a Thunderbolt cable?
The questions that you're going to get on the exam are ones that will give you a scenario where that's really the only thing that you would have to use. Because there's plenty of situations where you could use one thing or another. Let's say it's hey, you need to plug in an external storage device. What do you use? Well, I could use USB. I could use eSATA. I could use Thunderbolt. There's like multiple things you can use, but they're not going to give you a question on the exam where you have to choose between two things and figure out the best of two perfectly reasonable options. What they will give you is a very reasonable option, and then you have to figure it out.
I'm saying, yeah. I guess then more so what I mean is like when is it only a data connection? That's all I should view it as?
Probably not. You could like, get a question that says, because Thunderbolt is used for so many different things. It's used for video connections. It's used in some cases for networking. You can use it for external storage. It's just a fast external connector. And primarily it's storage, and primarily you don't see many people using it for Ethernet. You don't see many people using it for anything other than, I guess, generally storage and video. But if you get a question about storage and video, I mean, it's a nice multi 10 gig plus type connection. And if I was to get a new Mac right now, in fact, the videos I have, the screens I have up right now is an iMac, and I'm connecting to my secondary monitor with a Thunderbolt connection. That's my preferred connection because it's so simple. It's a USB-C connection. You plug it in. It's talking Thunderbolt between the two, and you're done.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that's really all I want to know. I want to thank you very much. Like, it's been very easy to kind of relate the information, how you teach it, and like as the videos progress, it seems to be more application of what you've given before it. So it's really how I like to learn this stuff. So thanks.
Best of luck in your exam, Matt.
Thank you.
I think that's the key also for learning this content, that you have to be able to look at what they're telling you, like Thunderbolt, and it's not enough to know, oh, it's Thunderbolt, and here's how fast it goes. You have to know, how do you use this now? Where do you plug this in and make it happen? Well, I have a USB-C connection on my iMac. I plug that USB-C Thunderbolt connection into the USB-C Thunderbolt connection on the back of the monitor, and now I've got video. Interestingly enough, I also, on this iMac, have another Thunderbolt connection, which also uses the USB-C connector, plugged into the video storage that I have down here. So I have an SSD reader down here. It's not running right now. Right now, it's my Cylons down here on the bottom right. That's my video recorder. It's recording to an SSD. And when I'm done with this, I'm stopping the recording. I pull the SSD out and I put it into a chassis that's just underneath it. That is an SSD. It's 4 SSD slots that I just plug in. And now those become drives, volumes that pop up on my desktop. So it's connected via Thunderbolt, and it's a Thunderbolt, I think, V2. So I got a 20 gig connection to that. And if I want to edit that video, I just leave them in that holder. And I'm editing in real time to those SSDs that I just plugged in down here all over that Thunderbolt connection. So there's some nice flexibility with Thunderbolt. You get a lot of things that you can do with it at very high speeds. So whenever I need to edit video, I don't have to transfer the video files over. I don't have to put them in a different format. I just pull the SSD out of the recorder, stick it into the writer, and edit directly from the SSD. It's a beautiful thing. Of course, I then make backups of all these things before I actually do the edit, but it's a simplified process. It's a simplified workflow. And that is the important part to me, because we're doing tons of videos. It helps if you can simplify how those things are going to happen. Back to the phones, 315 area code. Thanks for holding for so long. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is William, and I'm from New York.
Hey, William, what can we do for you?
I just had a couple quick questions on the exam takings. Now, you take the course 1 first, right?
Well, you have to take the Core 1 and the Core 2 on the A+, but CompTIA doesn't care what order you take them in. So you could take them in any order you would like. I would imagine most people do take the Core 1 first, sure.
All right, and then let's just say I pass the Core 1. Is there any time frame that I have to pass the Core 2?
The only time frame that CompTIA cares about is the time frame until the entire series is retired. So in this particular case, the Core 1 and the Core 2, this 220-1001 and 220-1002 are the latest versions of the exams. Both of those exams were released in January of 2019. They usually stick around for about 3.5 years. So you're looking at the July timeframe. July 2022 is the retirement, the estimated retirement date for those 2 exams. That means you have to take and pass both of them before July of 2022. Doesn't matter when you take the first one and when you take the last one. You could have taken the first one on January the 15th, 2019, but you have to take the last one and pass it before it is retired in July of 2022. So you could take them 3.5 years apart if you wanted to. That doesn't make much sense, but you could. But there is no deadline. You don't have to hurry up and get it done. As long as you take both of them before the entire series is retired, you're just fine.
All right, that's exactly what I was looking for, because on the website I tried looking for it and they didn't really specify.
They don't. It's a frequently asked question. I'm not sure why they don't, but that is the case. That's you got plenty of time.
All right, and I had just one other quick question for you. Now, you've obviously been doing this for a while. So your personal take on it, which exam would be harder? Like, which exam would you prefer to take first?
It sort of depends on what you've done in the past, because the first exam, the Core 1, has a focus on hardware and networking. That's kind of the core of that exam, is hardware and networking. If you're somebody who've built your own computers, you have replaced memory or upgraded memory in your own computer, you've worked a lot with fixing and replacing components inside of your computer, then your Core 1's probably going to be a little bit easier for you. If you're somebody who's never worked inside of a computer, but you've done a lot with Windows, and you've worked with operating systems, and you're familiar with the Linux command line, and you've done little security, but you've done a lot with these operating systems, what you're probably going to find is that Core 2 is going to be easier for you, because they're so different in their exams, and there's not a lot of overlap. In the Venn diagram between Core 1 and Core 2, not a lot in the middle. So they are 2 exams that stand on their own, but they really are very different topics in each one. Most people, I think, find Core 1 to be a little bit easier, but there's a little more memorization in Core 1, whereas Core 2 is about operating systems, where to find things in the operating system, how to fix things in the operating system, and it's less rote memorization. It's more about solving a problem. So that in some ways, it's a little bit different in scope and context, even though I personally find the difficulty level between the two to be about the same.
All right, that answers my question perfectly. I just want to thank you for all the hard work that you do, because there's really not a whole lot of good source material out there, which is really weird for this, considering it's, computers as a whole in the past 10 years have gone way up So I just find that kind of odd. But thank you for all your hard work, and that was all the questions I had.
Thanks, William. I appreciate the call. That's one of those things that it's sort of the reason I started doing this. My very first course I produced was a 601 and 602 A+ course. So 600, 700, 800, 900. This is my 5th A+ series course that I've done. And the reason I first did that 600 series course is even back then, the internet was there. We had all these resources available, but there wasn't a lot of good material on solving these problems. People would come to me and say, I took my computer to Best Buy, to a box store. I took it to Circuit City, and I told them to fix it, and they didn't fix it. And I said, well, why didn't they fix it? There's all these resources available on the internet you could go to that will tell you how to fix it. Look, I'll find one right now in Yahoo, right? And I would look in the search engines online in Alta Vista, and it would tell me nothing. It would not tell me how to fix this. And I thought, that's a shame. That's a problem. Why is there no resources available online that can tell me how to fix this? I'm going to make some myself. And that sort of rolled into what we have currently with these A+ courses. That's why I keep doing it. And to William's point, there's still not a lot of great resources out there. It's getting harder. The operating systems are getting more complex. The hardware itself is getting more complex. And we're just not keeping up with it. So I'm going to keep up with it. I'm going to keep doing these so we can make that happen. Back to the phone lines. The 347, I'm going to try to click that talk button. Maybe I'm going to click the talk button. There we go. 347 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Lily. I'm calling from New York. How are you?
Thanks, Lily, for calling. Doing good. What can we do for you?
Good. First, I want to say thank you so much. Your videos are fantastic.
Thank you.
I actually was taking an IT course. I don't know if you probably heard it for school. I didn't really understand the book, but you made it so much easier.
Glad to hear it.
So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have two.
Oh, did we lose you? You still there? We're hanging on. Are you going to come back? I'm going to keep talking like this. We'll see. We lost you there. You dropped out. Oh, poor Lily. Are you there? We're so close. Here's the question, and then nothing. How did that? Oh, and she dropped off. I didn't even drop the call. Oh, that's a shame. But call back. Lines are open at the number on your screen, 855-785-RJ45. To make that happen, let's go to South Florida, 561 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Messer. My name is Bryce. I recently have been studying super hard for the past month about.
I get it.
From your courses. I want to say that my friend, when I was in last July, this July, my friend basically got me into this. Like, I was going to go back to college, but then my friend was like, all right, how about you do CompTIA A? And I said, what's that? And then he introduced me to all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, there's so much information for this. You know, it's great. And there's a lot of cramming involved. There's so much to process and take in and do notes. And I like it. But the biggest problem that I'm having is kind of just absorbing. And the hardest part for me is probably like IP addresses and doing router stuff. And I've been around computers basically all my life. Mm-hmm. And what I'm asking is that how do you, if you're at a really like the weakest subject, what do you recommend to do? Because I take notes, I reread, but like there's some parts where I'm just like, wow, this is like a lot of information and stuff that I don't recognize because I've built computers before. I've built my own PC. So what do you think that I should do?
You're absolutely right that these exams, I think people kind of approach these exams sometimes not realizing this, that there is so much content in these certification exams that you have to know. And it's not just a CompTIA thing. Microsoft exams are the same way. Palo Alto Networks exams are the same way. VMware exams are the same way. Cisco exams are ridiculous in the same way. that there's so much you have to know to be able to get through these certifications. It's really a different approach than somebody who might be used to or accustomed to going to a college course. College courses are kind of a slower drip over a longer period, and there's a lot more consistency in content. Whereas with CompTIA, just the Core 1 exam, you're talking about hardware, there's motherboards, then you're talking about networking, now there's troubleshooting, there's cloud computing, there's all these different topics that are suddenly thrown at you, and you kind of have to know the same amount of content for every single one of these topics that you're going through. So it's absolutely reasonable to feel like there's a lot of content here, because there is a lot of content here. And it's very different than going through a traditional course and having that work. I think there are 4 things you really have to succeed with these certification exams. Doesn't matter whose they are. Could be CompTIA, Cisco, VMware, Palo Alto, whatever. You need 4 things. You need a good book, sometimes more than one good book. You need a good video series, sometimes more than one good video series. You need plenty of hands-on, because I think hands-on allows you to learn differently than what you saw in a video or what you did in a book. And lastly, you need really good Q&A. You need some way to validate that you really are learning what you should be learning through those other 3 steps in that process. So that is where I think the exam objectives will help. They are a great checklist so that you can start at the beginning, check off the things you know. If you can explain a topic to another person, you can check that off the list of the exam objectives. If you cannot explain that to another person, okay, you get to circle that one and go back and cram some more on that topic. Take little bites at a time. It's a long path. It's not something you do in a week. It's not something you do in 2 weeks. It's taking a little bite at a time and just being able to digest that piece of information all the way through. One advantage you have is that this content does not build on itself all the way through the exam. Thankfully, at the very beginning, you don't have to apply at the very beginning topics that you are learning at the end of this. You are applying the whole thing sort of overall as one single group. So you don't have to go super deep, but you do have to go super, super wide with all of this, so that you're learning a lot of different things in a very, very narrow scope with all of those pieces. And you'll get to the bigger scopes after you get through the certification exam. That's where I think a lot of people need to focus, is just taking the small bites, separating out the exam objectives into small chunks, allocating a certain amount of time every day to sit down. You go through it for an hour. Maybe you get 2 topics done in an hour. Maybe you get 10 topics done in an hour. Depends on the day. It depends on the topic. But eventually you get into this mode where you're able to bite them off and get through those chunks a little bit at a time. How long does it take? It takes however long it takes. Everybody learns at a different pace. Everybody goes through this at a different pace. Some people do get through it in a week. Some people get through it in 6 months. Neither one of those is bad. You just have to get through every single bit of it. So now it's up to you to kind of figure out the best way to modularize the training for you, and just break off a little piece and go with that little piece. If you take it all at once, it's completely overwhelming. You really do have to somehow get it into a mode that it will go into your brain and stay there while you go through all the other chunks of this.
Yeah. And one other thing that I would like to add is that I recently bought your notes. I saw your videos. I've even had some friends giving me resources for free about the tests. And these notes and the questions are like, I look at the questions and I'm like, wait, this is like a realistic scenario. Like, this is something that I'm going to be doing, because I'm reading through all these notes, and then I look at the questions. I'm like, wait, I know that. Like, I've done that before. Like, that's easy. But then most of the time, it's like I'm looking at questions, and the questions are 2 different, like, completely different from each other. So it's like the differences between the questions and what I'm learning are so, like, broad and open to what you initially are learning and cramming for, like what I've been doing for the last month, and then doing the questions. And I'm finding that I'm getting most of the questions right, but at the same time, it's like I'm doing these little mini mistakes. So the problem solving is mostly just what I'm having with. What do you think that this is my last question, by the way? What is the best kind of problem solving when doing the multi questions to like take in? I'm sorry, I'm kind of like dancing around like my question a little bit. You know what I mean?
Is this a case where you mean like the performance-based questions, or you're talking about the multiple choice? Or both of them?
The multiple, probably all of them. It's just like I'm looking at these questions and I'm like, they're so far apart from what the original answer is. And like I said, I'm looking at the detailed answers right now. And the amount of detail you put them in is great, because now I just like, I won't like make that same mistake again when I retake it.
Whenever I approach these, the problems I find, the biggest problems I have with the questions on the exam is I'm expecting the answer to be a certain answer when they ask a question. For instance, they say a user is having a problem with the monitor and they turn on their computer and the monitor is black. Which of the following is the most likely cause of this? And in my mind, I'm thinking it's not plugged in. That's your problem. And then I read the 4 possible answers, and that's not one of the answers. It's not plugged in is not one of those. So now I have to reset what I thought it was going to be. And of the available answers, I have to find the one that is the most possible of those 4. Because they don't have time to tell you in the question, you've already checked the power, you know it's plugged into the back of the monitor, that part's fine. So what else could it be? Is effectively what that question is. And those are the ones that always get me, because now I have to kind of reset my brain and go, oh, wait a second, the one I was expecting to answer isn't actually in the list. And you kind of have to go through the list of available problems in the exam objectives and then step through what they could possibly be if it's not power. It does take a little bit of hands-on. Maybe if you had more hands-on with those problems, it would be a little more obvious. But the answer should be one that kind of jumps out at you, that says, okay, that's the obvious answer for these others that are there. If you're working through some sample exams and the answers are vague, or it could have been one or the other, then those are not very good questions, because the exam has very specific questions and very specific answers. And what I have found on the exam is the right answer jumps out at you if you know the content. When I wrote my practice exam book, every single one of those questions I tried to make like the exam, where it would jump out at you, even though it had the same type of question. Which of these would be the most likely? Which of these would be the best answer? Which of these would be the first thing you should do? Those are very common questions on the exam. They throw a lot of people, but the right answer, you should be able to parse out to figure out why would that be the right answer, and then be able to justify that. And then it's obvious. Then, okay, has to be B, because this is why you're choosing that particular answer. So I think it's more of stepping through more sample questions and doing a little more troubleshooting. And if you can do that, I think the rest of it kind of falls into place, and you have a much better time when it comes down to sitting for the exam and answering some of those sample questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's really all I can ask for now. I mean, I'm doing good. You know, like I said, I just bought your books. I bought the 101, 102, and they're great resources of information. And I'm going to I definitely want to take my exam soon. I'm getting like a solid 70s right now. I feel like I can improve a little bit more, but yeah, just thank you. You know, that's all I can really say. Thank you very much.
You're doing the right stuff. Keep doing what you're doing. Get the content that you've got and the study materials you have are right on point. Keep working with those. Get up into the 80s, the 90 percentile, and you'll be ready for that exam.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor.
Best of luck. You're so close. That is one that you're doing all the right things during the study process. that you can't help at this point, but to get to that point and make that happen. Let's go back to Florida to 954. Hey, Broward County. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Professor Messer. This is Kevin from Pembroke Pines.
Kevin from Pines Boulevard. How are you, sir?
How you doing, sir?
So good, so good. What can we do for you?
Yeah, basically, I want to double down what I spoke to you about back in June. Well, I was telling you about when I first started Comcast business, and I was telling you about, my amazement of how so many of the trainers and the supervisor are not as, educated on things. And unfortunately, a lot of my classmates, they failed the probation period because they didn't know a lot of stuff, and they was arguing with the trainer about you didn't teach us well enough and and everything. And I just remember when all this was going down. I remember what I told you back in June. I was like, I was totally amazed about how many people, these trainers are not that IT savvy, and I didn't understand how some of them you mentioned even get the job to begin with. And then my account manager, she made a little comment talking about, I want more women to work here because there's too many men here. And I was just thinking like, okay, I understand diversity and all, but if a white person had said that same comment about black people, there would have been a major issue.
But this is one of those interesting things, though, that I think it would be great if more women were in IT, but you could be a woman and work in IT. You could be anybody and work in IT. The computers don't care who you are. That's the great part about technology in general, is that there is no limitation. There's no walls. There's no ceilings. There's nothing preventing anyone from doing what they want in IT. But I think it's one of those things where maybe it just doesn't appeal to a female as much as it does a male. I work with plenty of women in IT and technology who were top-notch, who's some of the best people I ever worked with. So I guess it just depends on what people are interested in that really drives what you happen to see in the industry. The problem, I think, with training, though, it's kind of hard to find good training, especially now because we can't train in person. You have to train over the internet. And as someone who does a lot of training over the internet, it's not easy. It's a different approach. You can't do an 8-hour-a-day training in a Zoom window. It just does not work. It's a different approach that has to be handled a different way. And I think it's going to take some time for a lot of the people in training to figure out how do you do that. Maybe it'll all be better once we finally get back to the classroom.
Yeah, but my philosophy is that it should be a meritocracy, and it should be who is really well educated and stuff like that. And I know there's a lot of politics involved, and I was shocked at that so many people, even some of my classmates, because some of them got degrees as well too. They were shocked about how many people are not that tech savvy, in these administrative positions like a trainer or a supervisor, and unfortunately, a lot of my classmates they didn't make the test, and they was really PO about it.
I hate to put it in this perspective because I have the luxury of having worked for the last one before doing this full time. I would go every day to 3 or 4 different companies and meet with people, and the level of technical knowledge across the board does vary dramatically. I would go into some organizations and the people working there would be some of the smartest, sharpest, best technical minds that I would have met in my career. And then I'd go to lunch, and in the meeting in the afternoon, you're having to explain what an Ethernet cable is to people who are in charge of enormous data centers. Like it's a completely different knowledge base. Like they really did hire people that were not ready for that particular job and stuck them in that job position, and they're having to learn as they go. You do find a wide variety of what people knew in a particular job. And so it's not just your particular company. It's not anybody else's company. It's just sort of humans in general have a very broad understanding of technology, and some of them are all of them happen to be working in one company, or a large number of them happen to be working in one or two companies. And then the smart ones are over here doing something else, trying to get through those things. And maybe it's one of these natural progressions of nature where eventually the smarter ones sort of move out and move over to the other smart ones, and then they all work together in the same room. I don't know how it works, but it somehow works out that way, that somehow they all end up at the one or two different companies. You always know walking in the door of these companies, all right, this is going to be a tough meeting because these guys are really good. Or this is going to be an okay meeting because it's a broad scope of people who and their knowledge base and what they happen to know. But this is sort of a strategy also of companies. If you hire somebody who's just learning, you could probably hire them for less. If you are hiring really smart people, you're probably going to have to pay them more. So there's also economics involved. And you mentioned politics. There's always politics involved. So there is the technical part of this. There is the financial part of this. And finally, the political part of this. And I've walked into a lot of places where somebody got hired because of who they knew and not necessarily what they knew, which I can't discount that. Good for you. You got the job. But now you have to really circle back and try to figure out how we're going to solve these technical issues. That's the real challenge. Don't ever worry that you're in an environment that is unique, because it is not. You're in the environment that everybody else is in technology. You just have to find a way to bring them along and to help them get to a point where you can do what they can do. And at some point, you decide, well, maybe I can't bring them along anymore. I need to go to the next step of my career, next phase of my career, and just move somewhere else. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad, but it's sort of the natural progression of what we do in technology. You hardly ever stay in one place for any long amount of time. You're usually moving up, out, and around to find the thing that works for you.
Yeah, well, I also, it's just that, when we was getting mad about this, fussing with the train about we was not really well properly educated, I kind of understand where it's coming from. I know all this stuff. I understand where it's coming from because the guy was putting out a lot of misinformation and a lot of omissions. And sometimes I'll try to help him out and say, oh, you forgot about this. And you feel like I'm cutting, like I'm trying to upstage. And I'm like, no, you forgot about certain things and whatever. And I'm like, I just get real quiet because I don't want to argue with him and stuff like that. So the whole thing was just, it was a weird experience. And my classmates was well educated. It was like, yeah, like he's not that well educated on IT. It's very obvious,
These things tend to take care of themselves, at least at a personal level. You always get these situations where there's probably oil and water and these things are not mixing well. It's not a good fit for you, or it's not a good fit for someone else. Eventually, these problems take care of themselves. You either now suddenly a new training person comes in that problem took care of itself, or the people who are having to train to this person go somewhere else because they don't want to be trained by that person anymore. That's kind of the way we break those things out. And it's unfortunate that you have to kind of go through these cycles. But I think when bad or inefficient things happen, or these difficulties, interpersonal problems, challenges politically, issues in the workplace always happen, there's always something to learn from that and something that you will be able to take to the next place you go. And you'll be able to maybe internalize it. Could it have been done differently? Could we have managed it differently? And maybe you won't be able to fix it this time, but you will be able to fix it next time because you've already been through it.
Yeah. I just hope there's somebody influential or somebody come in this IT industry and clean it up and start getting rid of all the people who are not that tech savvy and make it to a meritocracy where people who are really tech savvy should have entree into this industry, and people who are not, no offense, but until you become tech savvy, then you can come in.
We need a king and a queen. We'll set up a royal family of IT, and we will only allow people within the royal family who know what they're doing. How about that, Kevin?
Yeah. So thank you for your time, Professor Messer.
Best of luck. Hang in there. I know, having talked to you over the last few months, I know it's going to work out for you. You're doing all the right things. Keep doing all the right things. These things tend to take care of themselves, and you always end up being on the right side of what needs to happen anyway. Best of luck to you.
Okay, thank you.
That's one of those challenges. I have probably in my career, I've mentioned this before, had about 15 different job titles. Sometimes I move from company and within a job in the same company. Sometimes I move from company to company. But I always had this, I always had what I called the Star Trek movie issue when I moved from company to company, which means every other step I took, every other time I made a move, it was horrible. Like every other job I got was really good, and then every other job I got was really bad. And that was the problem I ran into whenever I'd make a move. I'd like, okay, we're making a move. Oh, but right now, we're about to go to search for Spock, or we're about to make the move to a bad company. It never seemed to work out right. And I don't know why I did that. Well, because I wasn't very good at reading the signs. That's why I did that. You always learn as you go. As I got later on in my career, that happened less often, as it turned out. But eventually, you find the right groove. You find the right place. My last job prior to doing this full time, I was a systems engineer at Palo Alto Networks. So I was one of the first SE teams hired at the company. We were just introducing this brand new next generation firewall technology to the world. Nobody had seen it before. It changed the world of IT security. It was just an enormous change. That was a perfect place to be. Suddenly, I'd finally gotten into a groove and made it to the place where everything was clicking. Everything was working. It was a great product. I worked with great people. The company was a great place to work. Like there was nothing bad about that job. That was the best job that I could have ever worked toward. Well, until this job. And that was the best job working for someone else I could have ever had. It really was a fantastic place. But you kind of have to get to that place. You kind of have to feel it out to find the right groove. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes feeling it out. Sometimes it takes calling some friends. Always keep your LinkedIn up to date. Always make sure the people you work with and the people that you meet are on your LinkedIn. Make sure you keep up with what they're doing. Always, always, always. The relationships that you build in this industry, they will be remarkable how they will help you throughout your career. People that I met and worked with very early on in my career, I still have them on my LinkedIn and can still talk to them and still see what's going on and still ask for favors and questions and all of those things, because that's just how we are as humans. And I recommend, if you have not gotten your LinkedIn page up and running, especially if you're going to be looking for a job, and even if you aren't, make sure your LinkedIn page is up to date. Best thing you can do in your long-term career goals. One of the best things you can do. Let's go to North Carolina, 704 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Freddie. I'm calling from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Freddie from Charlotte. What can we do for you, sir?
Hi, so I just have a quick question on network ports, the protocols. I think you get this question a lot because I literally memorized the entire list of protocols and port numbers. I wanted to ask you what protocol would be like most important, or what would be like an easier method to understand all of the protocols and their descriptions.
I don't know that there is an easy way to do it. The one thing I always tell people don't do is don't flashcard memorize ports and protocols. Knowing that port 80 is HTTP is not going to help you. You will not get a question on the exam that says, what port number is used by HTTPS? They're not going to ask you. That's a trivia question. That's a flashcard question. They don't ask flashcard questions on the exam. They will ask a question that says, Sam is configuring a firewall to allow people to securely pay for goods inside of a browser. What port number should you enable on the firewall? Okay, that is the question you're going to get on your exam. That's very different than memorizing that HTTPS is port 443. You have to know what HTTPS is. You have to know when it's used. You have to know how it looks on the network, how people would use it, how the application of it is used. So that's the part that probably is the most important one. And quite honestly, it's one where you sort of have to use it that way. Some are gimmies, like port 80 and port 443. we use all the time. It's in a browser. We're comfortable with using a browser. If you are not comfortable in SMB, then maybe you should take your Windows machine, load up Wireshark, capture some packets as you are connecting to a Windows share and transferring files over, and look at all the TCP traffic and see what port numbers are in use. Those things kind of, even if you're only seeing a portion or understanding a portion of what Wireshark is telling you, because Wireshark is just crazy detailed, the amount of information it can give you, even if you have only really noticing TCP and UDP port numbers going back and forth, it's now kind of being locked in your brain in a different way. There's a new synapse that fires that says, oh, now I have SMB, 445, TCP, Windows file transfer. There it is. I'm looking at it on the screen. There's something visceral about it. There's something that's almost physical in how you can touch it and go, okay, I recognize that now. Sometimes using it in that way is going to help you memorize these things. We sort of in the industry, you're going to use it every day. You're going to be sick and tired of it. You're going to always know this protocol. It's getting them initially on this exam that's the hard part. And I just think hands-on in labs will probably help you the most.
Yeah, because I was looking at your practice exams because I bought them 2 days ago, and yeah, I was looking at their protocols, and I was curious that they weren't asking any questions about, labeling what protocol goes with what port number and what defines that protocol. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I was getting stuck on and needed some help on.
You're right on track. You figured it out. You've broken the code. It's not about port protocol or even understanding what FTP stands for, HTTP stands for, or AFP stands for. They don't really care so much on the exam. They want to know, when do you use that? How is it used? When would you see that? How would you troubleshoot it? That's what they're much more interested in on the exam. A lot of people say, why don't I have flashcards I make available? That's why, because I don't think you should get trained on a flashcard. It's not going to help you as much as you might think on the exam.
Okay. Yeah, that actually helps a lot now. Yeah. I've had much success of learning on your course notes and your practice exams, and I really thank you for all the hard work you've done. I really appreciate it. Actually, one of my friend of mine actually recommended to you because I literally love IT. I like to, embrace an IT and learn more about troubleshooting tablets, computers, and other network protocols and stuff like that. And I really thank you for all the hard work you've done.
You're in the right place. You're among friends. You're on your way. Best of luck, Freddie.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
That's when you know it's right to have that is it. This is what I like to do. The interesting part of this industry is that it's just keep it growing and keep building on that. Today you do this. Like the first job I got in IT was field repair, field tech, field delivery. Like I had to go set up a printer. I put the printer in my trunk. I drive to a customer. I take the printer inside. I put it on their desk. I plug in the cables. I load the printer driver. There, it's done. Go to the next one. You have to start somewhere, but then you just build on it. You keep growing and you keep doing this. That's the real key to this. Yeah, I'm not saying for those in the chat room, don't use flashcards at all. I'm just saying the questions you get on your exam will not be flashcard questions. You will not get a question that says, what port is used by SMB? You're not going to get one. They're not on the exam. Sorry. So if you've studied, SMB is this port, AFP is this port. You will somehow get a longer question that talks about sharing a print, like we did today, sharing a printer share on a Windows network. What port number was used to do that? You got to know that SMB is used to share printers as much as files, so that's what you would use. And so SMB, there's my flashcard, 445. Finally you get back to the flashcard. But there was a whole step or two before you got to the flashcard part. That's what I mean, is with that. That's one of those you go through. Back to the phone, 708. Thanks for holding for so long. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller call. Oh, I have you turned down. Hi,
I'm calling from the Chicago suburbs. My name is Josh.
Hey, Josh. Thanks for calling. What's your question?
Hey, so first of all, thank you. Like everybody else, your materials are extremely helpful. I'm getting ready to take the Core 1 here in November. But my question is more around the job market. So I've been applying to like entry-level IT positions, help desk and stuff like that. And my question is, should I keep doing that? Because on my resume, I've listed that I'm currently studying for the A+ certification.
Good.
I'm actually pursuing an IT degree as well.
Nice.
So I was just wondering if you were in a hiring position, would you consider a candidate that is actively working towards those as opposed to somebody who already has those qualifications?
It's going to depend on the employer. There's a couple of things you have to kind of consider and think about as you're going through the actual job hunt process. And I'm mentioning this. I'm currently working on a video, really a pair of videos, which are the 10 reasons why your resume keeps getting rejected. And so I go through 10 things that are just major sticking points. One of those is you're submitting a resume that doesn't match anything to what the employer was asking for. And I think this is the biggest problem we run into is a lot of people don't realize you really should be customizing your resume to fit the employer. And there's lots of reasons behind that.
Yeah.
Most of it is these resume tracking systems that are looking at candidates. They're digitizing your resume. They're searching through it for keywords. And then only if you're passing through a number of keywords does it ever present this resume to be considered by probably the HR person, who then is looking at the top of your resume to see, are you even in the ballpark for what this position needs? And only then sending it to the hiring people to decide whether you get an interview or not. So there's all these steps you have to go through. And so when you mentioned, should I put on my resume that I'm studying for my A+, yes, because there's probably a keyword in that search that is looking for CompTIA A+, or 221001 or 221002 or whatever it happens to be. Absolutely put it on there. Now, you don't have it, and when the human finally gets to the piece of paper, they're going to read it and say, oh, they're working on it. They don't have it yet. But then they get to make the determination based on everything else that's on that resume. Is that somebody we should really talk to, though? Because these other things look good. Or maybe that's not a deal breaker for this particular position. Maybe they can get their A+ once they start. We're willing to pay them a little bit less because they don't have their A+ yet. So maybe this is a keeper. Let me send that one up the way. You don't know. You don't get to make that decision, and you should not be the one to make that decision. Don't ever disqualify yourself for a job. You should have them disqualify you. You don't know what they're looking for in the details. You only know that you can match as close as you can. And I tell people as I'm writing this video, I haven't shot the video yet, but it's about creating a resume that matches what people want or what they're putting into these job descriptions. And if they're looking for particular operating systems, they're looking for particular personal skills, they're looking for a willingness to work with others. You have all these things that will go into those job descriptions. Make sure that's on your resume on the front page, if possible, in the first top half, so that people, when they're looking at it, the first thing they see are all of these great skills that you have. And by the way, there's the same skills they asked for in their job description. Now you have to tell the truth. Don't lie and say you have those skills just because they were asking for the skills. But if it's a match, make sure you're matching it up as close as you can, because the human that sees this is going to see how many matches are there and then decide maybe this is somebody we should follow up with.
Yeah, I think that all makes perfect sense, and that's kind of the route I'm going. I think the thing that I'm hanging my hat on now, at least until I gain more technical knowledge, which that's not to say I don't have any. It's just that, I feel like getting that entry-level position will really put you over the top because you're going to be learning stuff that's on the job. But anyway, the thing that I'm hanging my hat on now is that I've always had jobs where customer service is an absolute must. So, I can go to bat with the best of them on customer service, and I really want that to be my differentiator, and then the technical aspect comes after.
It's all a combination. Some employers look for things more than others. The problem is you don't know what they're looking for. You don't know if they even care if you're good at customer service. Maybe they don't care about their customers. You don't know. These are certainly valuable things to know. And maybe they know that they're going to churn through people and they are a revolving door of help desk. And it's just an awful place to work. And they already know that. So they just need to get a warm body in there and you're at. Or it's a company that really does care. They put a high amount of emphasis on your people skills. They want to be able to see that, and they're willing to pay you a little more for it, but you don't know until you put it there. I would not wait to send resumes until you get certified. I think that limits you, especially if you're shooting for November to finish up. They've already filled those jobs that you're posting for now. When November comes, you get your certification, put your A+ certification on there, and then keep the process going if you don't have a position in place by then. Don't ever wait to send that resume in, because who knows what they're looking for. You don't know until they reject you. And at some point, you just get used to the rejection. Like, well, let's see how this goes. Let me customize a little bit, throw it in there, and we'll see if this is one that they might be interested in. And of course, most people they have a limit on how many times you could send a resume in a certain amount of time. And if that's the case, you certainly want to make timing decisions based on that. But for most people, they're trying to fill an open rec. And if that requisition is there, they're going to try to fill it, and they're more than happy to have you apply for the next one that comes down the road. Every company's a little bit different.
Okay, great. That's all wonderful information. Yeah, I have a job now in a non-tech related field that I absolutely hate, so I'm motivated.
Good for you. Keep doing what you're doing. Customize those resumes, get those keywords on there, make it match the job posting as much as possible. Not all of them are gonna hit. Not all of them are gonna be 100%, but you just got to keep posting and posting and posting with the best possible chance as this goes through the process. And that's the real key.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Best of luck, Josh. That's one that can be a challenge. If you're somebody who doesn't like rejection, you probably don't want to go through the job process, because that's just rejection after rejection. Even the ones that want to hire you will treat you like they're rejecting you so they can offer you less money. You kind of have to be very solid and very confident in your skills so that when it comes time where somebody is offering you a job, no, they like you. They might not be telling you they like you. They're offering you a job. So be strong and be confident. To the 347 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? It's Lily. Welcome back, Lily.
Hi. Sorry, I lost Wi-Fi. I'm talking Google Voice, so you know. Okay. So my question is, where's the cutoff between the IT and the engineering? Because I'm taking A+ now, but I'm wondering where should I go after A+? Where in the direction of engineering? I want to actually create and design things and fashion, things that have to do with computers and technology. And also I want to advocate for, people with victims of abuse and things like that. And I want to make things where they can feel safe going outside. So I'm like, where do I go? I'm like, I have no idea, because there's so many different certifications. I'm not so sure which path I should take and where's the cutoff of it.
Now, when you mention engineering, are you specifically talking about building the technology, either building the hardware or building the software that runs on the technology, or are you talking about implementing and using the technology?
Hardware and software. I want to actually make it from scratch, and then that's what I want.
Perfect. So one of the things throughout the bulk of my career was working for manufacturers, primarily software, but also companies where we did a bit of hardware manufacturing. One of my big first companies I probably worked with a total of about 8 to 10 years was Network General, where we made software, but we also made networking hardware that plugged into these things. Also worked with companies like Palo Alto Networks, where we made tons of hardware. The primary product at the time was a hardware product that our software ran on. So our company had a huge group of people that were sales engineers, technical engineers that taught people and showed people how to use the technology. But there was a whole nother group of people that I guess you could really call the real engineers, people who were hardware engineers, that were computer scientists is really the best way to put it. And that's really the Venn diagram of IT and computer science, that's kind of where those two bubbles are, with the very little amount of overlap between them. If you want to get into hardware engineering, you want to get into building equipment and hardware, it's really going to focus on computer science for the software side of things and electrical engineering for the actual building of the hardware side of things. And really from electrical engineering, it's really more of a combination these days of electrical engineering and computer science to really start building. How do you build the next big switch? How do you build the next big piece of hardware that's able to make those things happen? Those are two very different worlds, computer science engineering and information technology. The A+ Network Plus Security Plus, not really an emphasis on the engineering side. If you want to go more into building these technologies, whether it's hardware or software, you're going to want to look into computer science and you want to look into electrical engineering. Those are the two sides of that particular coin. And those particular sides in computer science and electrical engineering don't really have quote unquote certifications the way that the IT side has. It's not the same emphasis in understanding this. You kind of are building out the hardware, and when you build the hardware, that's your certification. That's how we certify you. What have you built? What does it look like? How does it work? It's pretty obvious when you start looking through the list of things that you've built, whether you can do it or not. It's not the same case. If you look at me, you're wondering, do you know anything about Linux? Do you know anything about Cisco? How many networks have you worked on? How many have you designed? I can't show you those. I have to tell you about those. So it's a little bit different. That's why we have such a strong emphasis in certifications on the IT side. So if you're interested in building those, absolutely look into computer science, absolutely look into the electrical engineering side. But I would not recommend you bother with the A+ Network Plus Security Plus or many of these other IT certifications. It just doesn't have the same fit into that particular vertical side of technology.
Uh-huh. Oh, it's so interesting. Okay. Because I thought that if I wanted to create it, I had to know all that background in order for me to know how to make it work. I didn't know that there was a very big difference in that matter. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. That definitely helps.
Thanks, Lily.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for calling back. Best of luck.
Thank you.
You know, what's one of the things, though, it would be nice if more computer science people, if more builders of the technology understood more about how the underlying technology worked. We often say on the side of networking that the people who are building the switches and the routers sometimes need a better understanding of switching and routing. They need to understand the protocols at the bottom level. These days, most do, and being able to work through them. But it's so difficult to really find somebody who's very good at understanding the underlying pieces of this. Having worked at places that were networking companies, that were Network General, it's in the name, Palo Alto Networks, huge networking emphasis. These were people that knew everything about security, networking, the underlying protocols, how to make it all work together, what people needed to do with it. It was a perfect storm of that. So that's one of those that I think would help anyone. Back to the phones. Let's go to the 202 area code. Hi, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? 202. Are you there? I hear
Hi,
you.
my name is Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
From Washington, D.C.
Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Hi, my name is Danielle.
Oh, may want to turn down that stream just a little bit.
So I've been studying. For the CompTIA A Plus, for the 101 series, the 1001, for a few months now, and I've been struggling with this online thing, because I'm so used to being in the classroom, so used to in-person instruction, and it's really difficult for me to get some hands-on training. So my question is what should I do in this? How do I get hands-on training at home?
It's so true. This is kind of one of the hardest things when you are not in a classroom, is to get the right kind of training, especially hands-on training. For the A+, there are some things you can do. A lot of the A Plus is hardware, so getting a separate computer and being able to pull that computer out is very useful to have that. And that's one where you kind of need separate hardware to make that happen. For the other side of it, there is software. You have to know Microsoft Windows. You have to understand how to do things in Windows. Not everybody has access to Windows, and not everybody wants to change their current setup to be able to work with the exam objectives. So what I always recommend people doing is, let me pull this up on my screen, is to go to do some virtualization. Pull up a version of Windows that's in a virtual machine. In fact, the Windows I pulled up here, I was showing earlier where we were doing things at the command prompt, was a virtual machine. This is I'm running Mac OS on my desktop. There's the Mac OS, the dock down at the bottom. And right in the middle of my screen, I have a Windows computer. So this is Windows 10. So I'm running both operating systems on a single computer using virtualization. This virtualization gives you the ability to do tons of things on in a window on your desktop without changing the operating system you happen to be using. And fortunately, Microsoft will give you a copy of Windows to use in a virtual machine, and they'll just allow you to download it and use it if it's for non-production purposes. I'm on this website. It says, Become a Microsoft Edge Insider. It's the Microsoft Edge Developer website. You get to this very easily by going to modern.ie, M-O-D-E-R-N, modern.ie is in the modern world. Modern.ie is the website that takes you to the Microsoft Edge Developer, and under the tools pull down is an option for virtual machines. So there's the virtual machines. If you click that, they give you a free version of Windows 7, Windows 8. Oh, they put Windows 7 back. Windows 7 did not used to be here. They got rid of it. So there's Windows 7. Windows 8.1 did not used to be here. They got rid of that. And Windows 10. So it looks like they brought them back, thankfully, because, by the way, on the A+, Windows 7, 8.1, and Windows 10 are the 3 operating systems you need. So if you don't have Windows 7 available, just download it. Now, it comes with different versions of Internet Explorer. It really doesn't matter. Maybe choose IE 11. That's the latest. And then you can run this in VirtualBox, Vagrant, VMware, Hyper-V, or Parallels, depending on the operating system you're running. VirtualBox is free. So if you choose IE 11 on Windows 7, you choose VirtualBox, you can download a zip file that already has a VM of Windows that you can then load into the free version of VirtualBox and run Windows 7 on your desktop, whatever you happen to be running. So I'm running Mac OS. I can run Windows 7 on this desktop in just a few minutes by downloading this. It's a big download, maybe more than just a few minutes. But at least now I can start Windows 7. I can open up the control panel. I can reboot it and go into the recovery mode. I can configure different settings. I can do all of the things that they expect you to do for the A+ exam and not make any changes to my underlying operating system. I can break it and then reset it back to the way it was. So there's a lot of value at being able to do that. That's on the Microsoft Windows website, modern.ie, modern.ie. I highly recommend you look at that, Danielle. It might help you.
Thank you so much, Professor Messer. And I forgot to mention while I was talking with you that I did, in fact, use Microsoft Azure to start learning some VMs and stuff like that. And I got the hang of it as well by looking at another YouTuber that, get on hands-on training. But aside from that, do you recommend or have any suggestions of something else that I can do that's different from the VMs?
Well, one of the things that you may want to do is there are a number of command lines you have to know, both for Windows and for Linux. Obviously, the VM idea works just fine for Linux as well. For both of those, maybe step through some of those command lines, go through every single one of them. That would also be another great lab to do. And there's tons of Linux command lines you need to know. And you can do them all in either a Linux or a Mac OS environment and get as much hands-on as you can with that as well.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Professor Messer. And by the way, I bought your stuff, so I wanted to mention that.
Thank
you.
I'm
supporting you 100%.
I appreciate that, too. Best of luck, Danielle.
Thank you.
Well, that is always an idea, is to get hands-on. I go through, for instance, command lines in my videos, and all the command lines are the same that you could do on yours. So I use some public IP addresses. You can run through the same trace route. You can run through the same ping. You can run through exactly what I do. So you can follow that all the way through. That may be another thing to try as well. So you get at least a coverage on all of those and figure out the details of that. Maybe that might help you as well. Plenty of places you can go with all those to make that happen. That's one where I think whenever I start looking at how can I get more hands-on, how can I do more of this hands-on, that's the way to do it to make all of those things happen. You don't need to go too far outside the scope of that. I think understanding Windows and knowing a little bit of that Linux command line would position you well for the 1002. So that if you're looking for more labs for that, that's where you go, is that 1002. I don't know, there's a lot of labs you would need for the 1001. Maybe getting hands-on with some of the hardware would help, but I don't know that's required. I think most of the labs you do will be software related for the 1002. Well, that was certainly overtime. We did a lot on that particular study group, but I think we did pretty well. We did our first hour of Q&A where I asked you the questions, and here in the second hour, taking the phone lines too. We thank everyone for joining us. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. Thanks for your calls. Thanks for the messages in the chat room. Thanks for what you do when you're not here. You're always sending messages. You're always, if you're not on a live stream, you're always letting me know what's going on. And of course, we have another live stream 2 days from now. On Thursday, the 10th, we have our 1002 A+ study group. So there's always something going on. We'd love to have you come back for that as well. There's, of course, all the resources you would ever need for your A+ are available on the Professor Messer website. Have a look there at professormesser.com. Our calendar's there. If you're watching the replay and you want to know when the next live event is going to be, at professormesser.com/calendar. Thanks for being here this time, and we will see you next time on the A+ study group. Thanks, everyone.